Chapter 5735. In a year's time, Kang Shinmu's supreme divine power had reached such a terrifying level. The realm of supreme divine power level 8 was an existence that was difficult to surpass for cultivators below the realm of level 8. It was not an exaggeration to say that a cultivator who had reached the 8th level of supreme divine power could easily crush any cultivator below the 8th level. And there was an insurmountable gap between the 8th and the 9th level of the supreme divine power realm. Just like breaking through to the supreme superior level, not only did it require an extremely strong comprehension, but it also required the absorption of the existing supreme divine power, combined with the cultivator's own talent, to reach the supreme superior level. If there were any mistakes during this process, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. This was the difference between the 8th and 9th level of the supreme divine power realm. The difference was that breaking through to the 9th level did not require the absorption of the corresponding supreme divine power. It all depended on one's own comprehension. Among all this, the most important thing was the supreme territory power. Only the supreme divine power that could unleash the supreme territory power could produce the corresponding rules. It could be said that the 9th level of supreme divine power was preparation for the rules. Kang Shinmu had already comprehended the 9th level. Even though He Zhanghai's supreme divine power had already reached the 9th level, he still believed that Kang Shinmu could not break through to the 9th level in a short period of time. But now, in front of him, Jiang Shenwu had indeed reached the 9th stage. "Isn't it time to return my things?" Kang Shinmu's eyes narrowed as he said in a low voice. "Come and take it if you can." He Zhanghai knew the main purpose of coming to the secret realm. It was not just the everlasting pavilion. The other sects were also here for the star map lock. Even though they had already obtained the star map lock, there was still one more important thing to do before leaving. The kid in front of him, Kang Shinmu, was holding Hai Fan's summoning instrument, Star Devourer. No, it should be the 8-god star plate. He Zhanghai could not help but feel disappointed in Hai Fan. Hai Fan had possessed Star Devourer a long time ago, but the people of Everlasting Pavilion only knew that it was Hai Fan's summoning Dharma artifact. They didn't know that it was the 8-god star disc. No matter what, he had to get the 8-god star plate back. He Zhanghai and Kang Shinmu fought again. Both of their supreme divine powers had reached the 9th level. It was fine if they didn't make a move, but once they did, it was earth-shattering. In the end, the cave couldn't hold on and collapsed. The cave had collapsed, and the entire place was in a mess. However, the spatial barrier that enveloped the entire cave was still there. Even if their attacks broke through the spatial barrier would quickly shift and be repaired. In short, their current attacks were unable to completely break through the spatial barrier. The cultivators who entered the cave abode were completely trapped in the spatial barrier after the cave abode was destroyed. It was also at this time that many cultivators realized the scope of the space barrier. In addition, the battle between Kang Shinmu and He Zhanghai was constantly moving. Broken spatial barriers were everywhere. Some of the spatial barriers could not be repaired in time, and spatial cracks would appear. Although these spatial cracks were connected to the outside world of the cave abode, they were affected by the spatial storm. It was difficult for ordinary cultivators to cross them. The creator of the spatial barrier, Hao Yan, had already sensed what had happened here the moment the cave abode was destroyed. Even though he was in another world, the spells he had left behind still existed. Hao Yan couldn't help but feel surprised. He didn't expect that someone could break through the power of magic on the star map lock. It seemed that this batch of cultivators who entered the mystic realm was not weak. Hao Yan's hand gestures quickly changed a few times, forming a complicated seal. An irregular crystal-like object suddenly appeared in front of him. The moment this object appeared, it slowly rotated. Following Hao Yan's command, this crystal-like object suddenly changed shape. At the same time, the spatial barrier around the cave abode where Kang Shinmu and the others were located suddenly trembled. Then, it changed rapidly. There was no order to the transformation of the spatial barrier. There was no law to its transformation at all. It was completely random. The cave abode that was originally destroyed actually reappeared in the space where the spatial barrier was located. Some cultivators discovered that there was no flow of aura in the newly formed cave abode. In other words, there was no flow of air. It was like a kind of magic tool. There was only the existence of space, no aura. For a moment, all the cultivators in the cave abode were on high alert. On the one hand, they were paying attention to the changes in the cave abode. On the other hand, they were quickly looking for the battle between Kang Xinmu and He Zhanghai. The moment the spatial barrier changed, Kang Xinmu sensed it. Not only did the spatial barrier repair itself, but the laws within it were also restored. Before comprehending the supreme power of space, Kang Xinmu only knew that there were laws in the spatial barrier, but he didn't know what the specific laws were. All the decisions he made were very cautious. Until the devouring power of the 7 devouring demon sealing art was activated. This devouring power didn't matter what kind of laws the other party had. As long as it was a law, it would devour it. It could be said that it was not picky at all. Now, the laws of the spatial barrier appeared again. This time, the laws made Kang Xinmu a little puzzled. He had to use the supreme power. Other than that, no other power could be used. Kang Xinmu was surprised. Was this the power of the supreme power of space? The laws related to space were quickly detected. Compared to Kang Xinmu, He Zhanghai wasn't as sensitive to the laws that appeared in the spatial barrier. He knew that there was a certain law, but he didn't know what kind of law it was. For this reason, He Zhanghai released the 2 powers, the formation vortex and the phantom vortex, at the same time, in an attempt to identify the laws within. Both were not supreme power. Without a doubt, He Zhanghai was attacked by the laws in the spatial barrier. The consequence of violating the laws was to be punished by the lightning tribulation of judgment. 2 lightning tribulation of judgment came crashing down and woke He Zhanghai up. He quickly put away the 2 secret techniques. As he wasn't sure what the laws were, He Zhanghai chose to wait and see. However, Kang Xinmu wouldn't wait for him to determine what the new laws were. While He Zhanghai couldn't act rashly, he quickly defeated He Zhanghai, took back the star map lock, and left with Emoya. Brat, He Zhanghai gritted his teeth, wishing he could tear Kang Xinmu to pieces. Only after Kang Xinmu and Emoya left did He Zhanghai understand what the new laws in the spatial barrier were. He Zhanghai retracted all of his power and circulated the supreme power of wind, speeding in the direction where Kang Xinmu and Emoya left. Chapter 5736. Supreme wind power could allow one to fly in the air, which was comparable to any movement technique. Given He Zhanghai's current supreme wind power realm, he could completely replace the phantom vortex technique. For now, for He Zhanghai, it was equivalent to not being able to use the position vortex. This was what He Zhanghai was proud of, and he was certain that he could rely on it to defeat Kang Xinmu and obtain the 8-god astrolabe and the Star Atlas lock. Of course, there was also the Star Atlas lock that Kang Xinmu possessed. Most people didn't know what the Star Atlas lock was, but he clearly knew that it was a seal of space. Kang Xinmu didn't deserve the power of the seal. He Zhanghai did not know that Jiang Xinwu had already grasped the power of the seal. Moreover, he had used the power of the seal that he had grasped, as well as the power that the seal itself exerted on Jiang Xinwu, to break through the power of the seal that existed on the Star Atlas lock. In other words, the seal had already recognized Kang Xinmu. In addition, Kang Xinmu had already comprehended the power of space, and the Star Atlas lock happened to be a seal of space, so the seal had completely become Kang Xinmu's power. Once the seal was completely comprehended by Kang Xinmu, it would form the laws of space. At that time, everything within the space that Kang Xinmu planned would be bound by the laws of space that Kang Xinmu had created. Before Kang Xinmu stepped into the Gate of Rules, the seal only existed in the form of the laws of space. This law was that no techniques related to space could be used. Kang Xinmu himself wouldn't be affected at all. This power, combined with the supreme power of space, could release an even stronger power. Kang Shinmu knew that he couldn't delay any longer, so he decisively released the power of space. At the same time, he released the power of the seal. At his current level, he could already skillfully combine the two without suffering any backlash from the power. The realm of the supreme spatial force was not high. It could only serve as a restriction. What was truly needed to be used in battle was the supreme divine flame. If the power of a 9th stage supreme divine flame were to face He Zhanghai's 9th stage supreme wind force or supreme lightning force, it might not necessarily be a match. He Zhanghai was also aware of this point. He knew that Kang Shinmu possessed multiple types of unparalleled god powers. It was just that he did not cultivate them to perfection. For example, the unparalleled soul power was only at the 4th level. Even though the unparalleled soul power was special and could directly corrode a cultivator's soul consciousness, the unparalleled soul force was still unique. However, the supreme soul power of the 4th stage couldn't cause any big waves. The only 9th level supreme power was the power of the supreme divine fire. Since the beginning of the fight, He Zhanghai had more or less figured out the strangeness of Kang Shinmu's supreme divine fire power. It was different from the power of ordinary supreme divine flames. There was an elemental aura mixed within it, and it was very similar to the flames of dead spirits. However, the addition of a portion of the flames of dead spirits was not enough to pose any threat. He Zhanghai had already released the peerless power of wind and lightning. These two types of unparalleled god powers had both reached the 9th level. Although he could not use other secret techniques, he could use these two types of unparalleled god powers to create laws. Using these laws to deal with Kang Shinmu was an extremely easy task. Most importantly, he had the power of regeneration. Although the power of regeneration was not an orthodox supreme power, after He Zhanghai's cultivation, it was close to being a supreme power. He Zhanghai released the power of regeneration and did not suffer any backlash from the laws. It was obvious that the laws had already regarded the power of regeneration as a supreme power. The moment He Zhanghai released the power of regeneration, Kang Shinmu had already gathered the supreme divine flame. At the same time, he sensed the existence of the power of regeneration. Moreover, with his supreme spatial force, he could see the minute particles that existed around He Zhanghai. These particles were like the power of nature that existed in the natural world, and they floated around He Zhanghai's body. When He Zhanghai released the power of wind and supreme lightning, the particles floating around him would automatically move closer to his body. The power that was consumed would be restored in an extremely short period of time. The power of regeneration? A year ago, when He Zhanghai fought with the divine light, he used the power of regeneration to forcefully beat the divine light back to the other world. A year later, He Zhanghai once again used the power of regeneration. When Kang Shinmu realized the existence of this power, he suddenly had an idea. On the surface, there was a huge disparity between Kang Shinmu and He Zhanghai's battle strength. Kang Shinmu had no chance of winning. However, this was only on the surface. Supreme Divine Flame was the advanced form of the flames of dead spirits. The 9th level Supreme Divine Flame was the advanced form of the flames of dead spirits. It was enough to suppress the Supreme Wind and Supreme Lightning at the same level. Kang Shinmu used the power of space and released the power of the Supreme Divine Flame without holding back. The moment the Supreme Divine Flame swallowed He Zhanghai's body, He Zhanghai still felt that his two supreme powers could withstand the Supreme Divine Flame. Even if they couldn't withstand it, the power of regeneration could help him recover quickly. However, the reality was cruel. When the unparalleled God Spirit Flame struck He Zhanghai, the unparalleled wind force and unparalleled lightning force were instantly destroyed. The power of devouring, which had been refined by the 7 devouring demons' sealing art, swept out in an instant, swallowing the supreme wind and supreme lightning. After devouring these two supreme powers, the connection between Kang Shinmu and the power of magic became even closer. This also confirmed his guess. He needed all of his supreme powers to reach the 9th level before he could step into the door of rules. Moreover, all of his supreme powers referred to not only the supreme powers he already possessed, but also the new supreme powers he obtained. He Zhanghai, who had lost his supreme powers, was on the verge of death when the power of regeneration came into effect. Kang Xinmu had been waiting for the power of regeneration. When the power of regeneration was activated, the power of devouring instantly swept over, wrapping him up and quickly swallowing him. He Zhanghai, who had lost his power of regeneration, could not resist any force at all and collapsed in this broken space. The battle between Kang Xinmu and He Zhanghai ended. The restrictions on the space were also lifted. Senior Emoya, let's leave this place quickly. Kang Xinmu did not intend to stay here any longer. Not long ago, he had sensed Dan Yuanfei's aura. Up until now, he had not fought with Dan Yuanfei, so he was not sure how strong Dan Yuanfei was. However, he knew that this was not a place to stay for long. Kang Xinmu used the power of space to quickly leave the cave with Emoya. The moment the two of them left the cave, the layers of space around the cave suddenly disappeared. The cave was exposed to the ordinary space. Chapter 57:37. There was only one possibility for this to happen. The battle between Kang Xinmu and He Zhanghai had ended, and they had broken the rules of the space rampart. As a result, all the cultivators who had entered the cave mansion were thrown out by the space rampart. In other words, the battle between Kang Xinmu and He Zhanghai had ended. At this moment, there was only Kang Xinmu and no He Zhanghai. The answer was obvious. All the cultivators' eyes fell on Kang Xinmu and Emoya. Senior Emoya, let's go. Kang Xinmu did not intend to pay attention to these cultivators. Now that he had gotten what he wanted, it was time to find Ao Tong's puppet. It seemed that he could not keep calling it Ao Tong's puppet. He should give it a name. Let's call it Blood Puppet. While he was talking to Emoya, Kang Xinmu had already renamed Ao Tong's puppet. Emoya nodded. The two of them turned around and left the place. The battle between Kang Xinmu and He Zhanghai ended with Kang Xinmu's victory. What did this mean? It meant that Kang Xinmu not only obtained the star map lock, but he also obtained the star map lock core. None of the cultivators present would let Kang Xinmu leave just like that. The Everlasting Pavilion's disciples were the first to bear the brunt. The moment Kang Xinmu and Emoya set off, they stepped forward and blocked their way. At the same time, Dan Yuanfei also descended. The two of them were surrounded by the Everlasting Pavilion's disciples. Kang Xinmu, right? Dan Yuanfei's eyes coldly swept across the two of them. Finally, his eyes fell on Kang Xinmu. Regarding Kang Xinmu, Dan Yuanfei did have an impression of him. Previously, in the ancient desolate ancient city, he had seen Kang Xinmu and Emoya enter the city together. Later, they left the ancient desolate ancient city unscathed. Just think about it, there was a big event in the ancient desolate city that startled the entire sealed secret realm. Especially when General Leng Changhong's will was to eradicate the 7 devouring devil sealing arts fragment. At that time, the ancient desolate city was flooded with rivers of blood. Even if the derivation formation was broken and General Leng Changhong disappeared, the ancient desolate city had not been restored to its original state, and there were traces of puppet insects everywhere in the space, as well as the various blood puppets left behind by General Leng Changhong during the ancient martial kingdom era. Because of Hai Fan's disappearance, Gu Feng went to find Kang Xinmu to reason with him. At that time, Dan Yuanfei had thought that Gu Feng had misunderstood the situation. Now, it seemed that he had overlooked the details. Kang Xinmu had long since killed Hai Fan and seized Hai Fan's summoning artifact, Star Devourer. He erased Hai Fan's contract imprint on Star Devourer and took it for himself. He even killed Gu Feng, who was sent to capture him. What Dan Yuanfei regretted was that he hadn't dealt with Kang Xinmu earlier. That way, Feng Heir wouldn't have met with misfortune. Eldest senior brother, it's him. The disciples of the Everlasting Pavilion stared at Kang Xinmu. They wanted to tear Kang Xinmu apart with their eyes. Yes, it's me. What can I do for you? Kang Xinmu's reaction was very calm. Life and death were fated. Moreover, on the path of cultivation, the strong survived while the weak could only be eliminated. This was the inevitable rule of survival, and no one could change it. It was because he was weak that he was bullied by Hai Fan. Later, he killed Hai Fan through some means and obtained the 8-god star plate. This was a matter of course. In the world of cultivation, the most common and normal thing was to kill people and steal their treasures. And then there was Gufeng. If Kang Shinmu didn't become stronger, he would be bullied. This was the cruel law of cultivation. Of course, it didn't mean that the people of the Everlasting Pavilion were wrong. They also had their own standpoint. No matter who killed the people of the Everlasting Pavilion, they were the enemies of the Everlasting Pavilion. In this matter, there was no right or wrong. There were only different standpoints. You'll pay with your life, Dan Yuanfei said coldly. Kang Shinmu's calmness was beyond his expectation. A mere wandering cultivator dared to be so arrogant. Was it because of the woman beside him that he was relying on? With just the two of them, did they think they could compete with the entire Everlasting Pavilion? So, it's impossible for you to give way? Kang Shinmu glanced at the many disciples of the Everlasting Pavilion who surrounded them and said indifferently. It's not impossible. If you die, not to mention this path, I can even give you the entire secret territory. Dan Yuanfei raised his eyebrows. With a wave of his hand, a giant sword appeared in his hand. The huge sword was completely black. Just by standing in the air, it emitted a powerful sword aura that caused the air to tremble. The sword energy emitted from the giant sword was very powerful. At the same time, it gave Kang Shinmu a familiar feeling. He felt that the material of the giant sword was black iron. Although it had been forged, it was still black iron. Since it was black iron, it should be helpful for him to improve his supreme black iron power. Kang Shinmu actually had the ability to take Moya away. However, he also knew that even if he could escape unscathed this time, the people of the Everlasting Pavilion would come after him in the future. Moreover, the enmity between him and the Everlasting Pavilion had already been formed. Escaping wouldn't solve any problems. The only way to solve the problem was to face it head-on. Kang Shinmu immediately released the Supreme Divine Flame. Kang Shinmu. Moya was a little worried. I'm fine, Senior. You should always pay attention to the surroundings. Kang Shinmu said in a deep voice. Moya nodded and flew to the side. Although there were disciples of the Everlasting Pavilion blocking her way, Kang Shinmu had already cleared the way for Moya. After ensuring that Moya wouldn't be hurt, Kang Shinmu completely released the Supreme Divine Flame. In an instant, the 9th level Supreme Divine Flame spread and surrounded all the disciples of the Everlasting Pavilion. The power of a 9th stage Supreme Divine Fire? Dan Yuanfei quickly recognized the Supreme Divine Flame released by Kang Shinmu. He had seen quite a number of people who cultivated the power of Supreme Divine Fire, but those who could cultivate the power of Supreme Divine Fire to the 9th level were few and far between. However, it was a bit ignorant to think that he could deal with the Everlasting Pavilion with the power of the 9th level Supreme Divine Flame. When Kang Shinmu released the Supreme Divine Flame, it swept towards Dan Yuanfei. Dan Yuanfei waved the giant sword in his hand, trying to split Kang Shinmu's Supreme Divine Flame with sword chi. It wasn't until the two collided that he realized that something was wrong. This was not the power of the Supreme Divine Flame in a simple sense, but the Supreme Divine Flame evolved from the Supreme Divine Flame. There seemed to be the aura of another world coming from it. Was that the flame of the undead? By the time he realized the flame of the undead, the Supreme Divine Flame had already penetrated the giant black sword and invaded Dan Yuanfei's body. After all, Dan Yuanfei was not an ordinary person. He quickly controlled his power to resist the Supreme Divine Flame. Dan Yuanfei believed that there was no reason for him to lose to Jiang Shenwu, a 9th stage Supreme Divine Strength cultivator. However, the reality was cruel. The supreme godly power of Yifei's 9th level realm could not resist the 9th level supreme god spiritual flame and was even suppressed by the supreme god spiritual flame. The supreme god spirit flame invaded Dan Yuanfei's soul, consciousness, and sea of consciousness, shattering his soul, consciousness, and sea of consciousness. Then, it quickly spread throughout his meridians, completely destroying his supreme god power. In the end, it refined the black iron giant sword. Chapter 57-38. Kang Xinmu had killed the Everlasting Pavilion's eldest senior disciple, Dan Yuanfei, in one hit. It was the first major event in the secret realm. The news spread like wildfire. Everyone was discussing who Kang Xinmu was. In the secret realm, rumors about Kang Xinmu's background started to spread. After killing Dan Yuanfei, Kang Xinmu also defeated the Everlasting Pavilion's disciples who wanted to avenge Dan Yuanfei. Then, he quickly left the place with Emoya. This was the secret realm of the secret realms. They came here for the Star Atlas Lock. Now, not only did they get the Star Atlas Lock, but they also got the Star Atlas Lock core and the power of the Star Atlas Lock. For Jiang Xunwu, this was a kind of fortuitous opportunity. Senior, you came with me for nothing. This was what Kang Xinmu felt guilty about. Fortunately, Senior Emoya was not hurt. Otherwise, he would have been a sinner. How could that be? Hearing this, Emoya smiled slightly. Then, she opened her right hand. Suddenly, a cloud of 7-colored mist floated up from her palm. Not long after, the 7-colored mist formed a lotus. This is. Kang Xinmu looked at the 7-colored lotus in Emoya's right hand in confusion. This is the Moon Heart Lotus. Emoya said gently. I found it not long ago. It was Kang Xinmu's first time hearing about the Moon Heart Lotus. Naturally, he did not know what it was or what its effects were. He only sensed that the air around the Moon Heart Lotus froze the moment it appeared. Moreover, there seemed to be a strange aura coming from its body that spread to the surroundings. Emoya had some misgivings and quickly put away the Moon Heart-colored lotus. Kang Xinmu, let's leave this secret realm quickly. Then Emoya urged him. Kang Xinmu nodded. The two sped up. Although they heard about Kang Xinmu's achievements along the way, they were not shaken. They arrived at the exit of the secret realm. The so-called exit of the mystic realm was actually the entrance to the mystic realm. However, when exiting the mystic realm, the structure of the mystic realm's passageway was very different from the structure of the entrance. Moreover, although there was no supreme space force of nature in the passageway, there was another supreme divine force of nature. It was a white gas. Just by looking at his appearance, Kang Xinmu instinctively thought of a supreme divine power. Emoya's eyes curved. She smiled gently and looked at Kang Xinmu tenderly. Kang Xinmu was well aware of this. This white gas was not the power of nature of other supreme divine powers, it was the power of nature of the supreme holy ice power. Since that was the case, Kang Xinmu released his devouring power without any hesitation. The devouring power instantly spread along the passageway, devouring all the supreme holy ice power and nature power in the passageway. After withdrawing his devouring power, Kang Xinmu and Emoya entered the tunnel. Just as the two of them entered the passageway, the cultivators from the various sects in the outer region rushed over and entered the passageway. Apart from the Everlasting Pavilion, the other 3 sects, including some rogue cultivators, also had experts at the 9th level of supreme divine power. For them, a mere passageway was no longer enough to stop them. Although Kang Xinmu could not immediately comprehend the supreme holy ice power, he also had the 9th level supreme divine flame. The current Kang Xinmu's strength was far stronger than a year ago. He quickly left the passageway with Emoya. At the exit of the passageway, Kang Xinmu turned around and glanced at the exit. When he entered, he did not notice that the exit was already there. He had only entered the entrance because he was lucky. Of course, he could not conclude that he was just lucky just based on what he saw now. Perhaps it was because his strength was much stronger than a year ago, coupled with the fact that he came out from the exit, he could see the secret of the passageway. No matter what, this experience was very dangerous, but it was also very rewarding. Senior, wait a moment. Kang Shinmu looked at the exit, then at the entrance. With a little trick, he used the mystery of the entrance to merge the entrance and the exit into one. In this way, the entrance and exit of the mystic realm were one. Kang Shinmu had already figured out the mystery behind it. Through his calculations, he had a rough understanding of the situation. After the changes were made, he could no longer enter the mystic realm from the entrance, nor could he leave the mystic realm from the exit. No matter which road he took, they would only fall into a cycle. Kang Shinmu, the mysteries hidden at the entrance of the secret realm should change, right? Moya glanced at Kang Shinmu's actions with her beautiful eyes and saw through the mysteries hidden within. Yes, it will change within a certain period of time. There was some regret in Kang Shinmu's voice. I can only change it this time. When the time is up, the hidden formation will automatically change, and my spell will automatically disappear. This is enough. Let's go. Moya smiled softly. To be able to do this, it really proved that Kang Shinmu's power had increased to a terrifying level. It was not an exaggeration to say that even he Zhanghai might not be able to do this. At the entrance of the mystic realm, a large number of cultivators had already entered the passage, but there were a few who had not entered. Although they did not see Kang Shinmu casting the spell, or did not know what happened at the exit of the passage, they only noticed that the passage had changed rapidly at this moment. The most obvious thing was that the supreme divine force of nature in the passage had disappeared. When entering this passage, they encountered the supreme divine force of nature. Although it was just some ordinary supreme divine force, it still existed. At this moment, there was actually no supreme divine force of nature in the passage. At first glance, there was no difference between the exit and the entrance. There must be something strange about it. The exit of the mystic realm was the ancient barren ancient city. In 1 year, the ancient barren ancient city was the same as before. The two did not stay for long and first set off for the nearest city. The city closest to the ancient barren ancient city was much more normal than the messy ancient barren ancient city. It could even be described as luxurious. Kang Shinmu also did not expect to see such a city here. Kang Shinmu, do you feel that there is something strange about the city in front of you? Moya's beautiful eyes narrowed as she asked doubtfully. It is a little strange. After all, this is a mystic realm. Such a city should not exist. Previously, after the battle between Kang Shinmu and Leng Zhanghang, he was sent to another city by the realm. On the way back to the ancient barren ancient city, they passed by 2 cities. The scenery of each city was roughly the same as the ancient barren ancient city before the battle. I have a feeling that this city is not a city in the mystic realm. Moya's footsteps slowed down. Kang Shinmu also stopped. After carefully sensing it, he was shocked. Chapter 5739. Kang Shinmu gathered his energy again and approached the city. Although his power had passed through, he could sense a special barrier around the city. It was like a barrier of space. Kang Shinmu became cautious when he mentioned the space barrier. This time, he quietly released the Supreme Space Force. After examining it with the Supreme Space Force, he confirmed that the special barrier was essentially a space barrier. However, unlike the space barrier they encountered in the cave abode, this space barrier contained another kind of scorching aura apart from the undead flame. This scorching aura came from a type of scarlet element. Senior Moya, do you know of anything that's similar to the undead flame? It appears to be a scarlet element. Kang Shinmu roughly described what he sensed to Moya. Scarlet element. Moya rubbed her chin and pondered. Senior, I'm guessing that this thing is also from the other world, and it's highly likely to be from the 4 great corpse progenitor clans. Kang Shinmu said in a deep voice. After all, he had already come into contact with the undead flame, so he could sense these things. Even though he didn't know what these crimson elements were, he was sure that there was a connection between them. Kang Shinmu, I just thought of something. The 4 great corpse progenitor clans were not unfamiliar to Moya. The undead flame belonged to the undead spirit clan. In that case, the other 3 clans also had their clan treasures. The fire spirit clan's heavenly serene flame was one of them. Of course, the fire spirit clan was a big clan, and the heavenly serene flame was just one of them. However, the heavenly serene flame matched the scarlet element that Kang Shinmu had described. The fire spirit clan's heavenly serene flame. Moya thought for a moment and said softly. The fire spirit clan's heavenly serene flame. It was Kang Shinmu's first time hearing about the fire spirit clan. He did not know which clans the 4 great corpse progenitor clans were, but he knew that it included the undead spirit clan. However, Kang Shinmu was no stranger to heavenly serene flame. The first supreme divine power he cultivated was the supreme divine flame. When the supreme divine flame reached a certain level, it could devour the flame energy in the world. Among these flames was the heavenly serene flame. Of course, including the heavenly serene flame was one thing, he had not really swallowed the heavenly serene flame. Since the city in front of him contained the elements of the heavenly dark fire, it was not a big problem for him to devour it. Moreover, Kang Shinmu and Moya had left the desolate ancient city to search for a city that was closer to the desolate ancient city. After all, the 2 of them had entered the sealed secret realm purely by chance. They had not entered the sealed secret realm intentionally. Until now, they still didn't know what kind of existence the sealed arcane realm was. Since this city was so strange, the 2 of them took a detour around it and planned to go to another city. He could go anywhere to get information. However, what puzzled them was that this city seemed to be moving. No matter where they went, they could always see this city. At this point, if the 2 of them still didn't understand what was going on, it would be unreasonable. It was obvious that someone in this city was paying attention to their movements at all times and was always following them. Senior, wait a minute. Kang Shinmu stopped. Moya also stopped with Kang Shinmu. In this city, someone was deliberately looking for trouble. Their stance was also very obvious. If they did not solve this problem, they would always be entangled by this trouble. Since there was also a space barrier around this city, and the space barrier contained the elements of the undead flame. Therefore, there must be a cultivator who moved his cave abode out in this city. Moreover, even if he was not in the city, the people in the city were also his fellow sect members. At this time, in another parallel world, Hao Yen. After the battle between Kang Shinmu and He Zhanghai ended, he planned to change to a new rule. However, he did not expect Kang Shinmu to actually leave. Moreover, it was certain that Kang Shinmu must have mastered the supreme spatial power. Only the supreme spatial power could move freely in the space barrier. When entering the arcane realm, Hao Yen also discovered the supreme spatial power of nature condensed in the passage. It was not that he was not tempted. Unfortunately, he could not condense the supreme spatial power of nature and could only give it up in the end. However, he did not expect that the supreme spatial power of nature had already been condensed by someone and had even comprehended it. Not only did he comprehend it, but he also seemed to have mastered it to a very high degree. He did not expect such a powerhouse to exist in such a small arcane realm. Hao Yen released a signal. This was a Dharma artifact that he had personally refined. It was a communication Dharma artifact. The other half was in the hands of the left protector. At this time, the left protector was in the city in front of Kang Shinmu. It was also his intention to stop Kang Shinmu. Hao Yen sensed that Kang Shinmu had already left the cave abode, but he knew that he should not have left the sealed arcane realm. Therefore, he wanted the left protector to stop Kang Shinmu. He was interested in the supreme spatial power that Kang Shinmu had condensed. He also conveyed his intention to the left protector. If Kang Shinmu was willing to join them, then he would let Kang Shinmu take the position of the alliance leader. If Kang Shinmu was not willing to agree, then there was no need for him to stay. There was no genius in the alliance that could not be found. To put it simply, geniuses who did not follow the arrangements of the alliance would only have a dead end. Of course, the left protector had only received the message from Hao Yen. He did not know what Kang Shinmu looked like. They had not been in the arcane realm for long. Although they had heard about the various deeds of Kang Shinmu in the ancient desolate ancient city, they still did not know what Kang Shinmu looked like. There were many cultivators who claimed to have seen Kang Shinmu before, and they had a variety of descriptions of Kang Shinmu. In summary, Kang Shinmu looked fierce and had a domineering aura. Therefore, when the left protector saw Kang Shinmu and Emoya, he was not sure if the young man was Kang Shinmu. Moreover, they did not have to follow Kang Shinmu and Emoya, but Tang Xiaoyu. Over the past year, Tang Xiaoyu had almost explored all the sealed arcane realms. He was a little worried about Kang Shinmu and Emoya, so he had been asking around for news about Kang Shinmu and Emoya. The results were comparable to the information that the left protector had obtained. Finally, he came to check personally. Tang Xiaoyu was a wanted criminal of the Heavenly Yuan Palace. The moment he appeared, he attracted the left protector's attention. The left protector controlled the city and followed Tang Xiaoyu. The current situation was that Kang Shinmu and Emoya were standing in front of the city, and Tang Xiaoyu was standing behind them. The left protector was about to question Tang Xiaoyu, but he noticed Kang Shinmu and Emoya. Tang Xiaoyu could notice the existence of the city because he was from the Heavenly Yuan Palace in the Outer Realm. Chapter 5740. The left protector sized up Kang Shinmu and Emoya, his expression suddenly becoming solemn. These two people's supreme divine power realm was unimaginably high. The young man dressed in ordinary clothes had the transcendent strength of a ninth-stage cultivator. As for the woman beside him, the aura around her was rather unique, preventing him from examining her with his power. He was unable to determine her cultivation base. Hey! The left protector was about to go out to check on Kang Shinmu and Emoya when he heard a shout. It was Tang Xiaoyu. Tang Xiaoyu was in a bad mood. A city wouldn't be able to stop him. However, the owner of the city was clearly targeting him. Delaying his search was the fault of this city's owner. The left protector heard Tang Xiaoyu's voice and opened the city gates for him. Young Master Tang, please come in. The left protector's voice came from the city. Tang Xiaoyu recognized his identity as soon as he heard the voice, and his face immediately darkened. This was the left protector's voice. The United Alliance had always been at odds with the Outer Realms, and he didn't know why they had appeared here again. Tang Xiaoyu didn't want to get involved with the United Alliance, so he turned and left. The left protector saw Tang Xiaoyu leaving and immediately stopped him. On the other side, Kang Shinmu also heard the left protector say, Young Master Tang. It's Tang Xiaoyu, right? Kang Shinmu thought of Tang Xiaoyu. Thinking about it, it had been a year since he parted with Tang Xiaoyu. He didn't know what he had gained in this year. It should be. Emoya replied softly. The city had stopped, which meant that the owner of the city was chasing after Tang Xiaoyu. For Kang Shinmu and Emoya, Tang Xiaoyu had taken care of them along the way, and was someone they could trust. The two naturally wouldn't just watch Tang Xiaoyu be captured, so they approached the city. This action attracted the attention of the city's owner, the left protector. He hadn't even asked, but these two actually took the initiative to come to him. How interesting. Although the left protector didn't act personally, he sent people. All the members of the United Alliance wore the same uniform, red and white, with an identity card on their waists. The 20 people who came out this time all had blue identity cards, which represented that they were from the Outer Realm. As soon as the 20 of them left the city, they headed straight for Kang Shinmu and Emoya. Tang Xiaoyu had already left, but when he sensed the disciples of the United Union at the main gate of the city, he realized that something might have happened here. Even though he'd left the secret realm a long time ago, he'd always been paying attention to Kang Shinmu and Emoya's movements, so he was naturally aware that the two of them hadn't left the secret realm in the past year. Any news that came from the ancient desolate ancient city had to be confirmed. This time was no exception. Tang Xiaoyu saw Kang Xinmu and Emoya the moment he approached the city gate. Without any hesitation, he directly flew over. Senior Mo, Brother Jiang. Tang Xiaoyu smiled. It really is you. Kang Xinmu glanced at Tang Xiaoyu. From the looks of it, Tang Xiaoyu's cultivation had improved a lot in the past year. Moreover, Tang Xiaoyu's 10,000 elephants origin superposition technique had become more exquisite. When Tang Xiaoyu appeared, Kang Xinmu only noticed the abnormality in the space. Brother Jiang, let's leave this place first. The reason why Tang Xiaoyu returned was to check on Kang Xinmu and Emoya. Now that they'd met up, there was no need to stay here any longer. Just like Tang Xiaoyu, Kang Xinmu's original intention was also Tang Xiaoyu. Now, there was no need to continue staying here. The three of them decisively turned around and flew to the side. Tang Xiaoyu was just a wanted criminal of the Heaven Yuan Palace. The other two weren't even famous people. Unexpectedly, they were ignored by these three people. The 20 members of the United Union, who had already left the city gate, uniformly rushed forward, blocking in front of Kang Xinmu and the other two. Of course, these 20 members of the United Union weren't enough to stop Kang Xinmu and the other two. What stopped the three of them was the space rampart. What astonished Kang Xinmu was that these 20 members of the United Union could all release space ramparts. The essence of these space ramparts that surrounded them was the flames of the dead spirits. This made Kang Xinmu involuntarily think that the dead spirits clan of the four great corpse ancestor clans of the other realm were together with the people who appeared in front of them. Or, there were people of the dead spirits clan of the other realm in this city. Brother Jiang, this is the United Union, an organization formed by the outer realm and several special regions around it. Tang Xiaoyu thought for a moment and added. Among its members are the Demon God clan and the Emperor Bat clan. Kang Xinmu's expression froze when he heard this. The Demon God clan and the Emperor Bat clan. He had a grudge with these two clans. Along the way, in order to pursue him, these two clans did not hesitate to send some experts. Jiang Shenwu, on the other hand, killed all of those experts. He had thought that he would never meet people from these two clans again. He never thought that he would run into the United Union again. The United Union has more members. The Demon God clan and the Emperor Bat clan are only members, and they are not the main force. Speaking of this, Tang Xiaoyu seemed to have remembered something. By the way, Brother Jiang, these two clans are both from the Nightmarish Domain. The Nightmarish Domain was similar to the Outer Realm. The difference was that the Outer World Realm was just a special spatial region. The Nightmarish Domain was equivalent to a parallel world. The Nightmarish Domain had a gate that connected to the other realm. This was something the Outer Realm couldn't compare to. Moreover, the Nightmarish Domain was vast, and there were many experts in it. If there were cultivators in the Outer Realm who had discovered the Realm of Rule and had the experience of opening the Gate of Rule, then there were experts of laws in the Nightmarish Domain who could set foot in the Gate of Rule. The United Union's base was in the center of the Nightmarish Domain. Tang Xiaoyu had a chance to go to the Nightmarish Domain before. He had lived there for 2 years. Although those 2 years were his darkest, he had never found the United Union's base. Yes. Kang Xinmu nodded. It seemed that he had underestimated the origins of the Demon God clan and the Emperor Bat clan. They were from the Nightmarish Domain. There are a lot of members in the United Union. I don't know exactly who they are, but I'm sure that they have something to do with the Dead Spirit clan in the other realm. As for the other 3 clans, the Corpse Ancestor clan, I don't know either. Tang Xiaoyu had his reasons for saying this. Although he hadn't met many people from the United Union, every time he saw them, he had seen them use spatial ramparts. This was enough to prove that they were related to the Dead Spirit clan. I think so too. Kang Xinmu had some speculations when he saw the 20 members of the United Union use spatial ramparts. Let's go out first. Tang Xiaoyu was about to use the manifestation essence folding technique when he sensed that there was something wrong with the surrounding space. The manifestation essence folding technique could distinguish the range of the spatial ramparts and the barriers that existed within them. They could pass through the barriers and escape smoothly. Chapter 57-41. Tang Xiaoyu was sure that the passage that suddenly appeared was due to Kang Xinmu's supreme divine power. Other than the 10,000 elephants origin stacking technique, which could easily break through the space barrier, there was also supreme spatial power. Supreme spatial power was a kind of supreme divine power of a single element. The passageway leading into the secret realm of the cave mansion was filled with the supreme power of nature. Tang Xiaoyu wasn't the least bit surprised that Jiang Xinwu had mastered the supreme space force of nature. Instead, he felt that it was an extremely normal thing. It could be said that he had some dealings with Kang Xinmu. It was not an exaggeration to say that Tang Xiaoyu had watched Kang Xinmu's supreme divine power grow step by step. Kang Xinmu used supreme spatial power to open a passage to break through the surrounding space barrier. Kang Xinmu and the other two rushed in and quickly broke through the barrier. The 20 members of the Union Alliance obviously did not want to let them go so easily. Seeing that the spatial barrier was unable to trap the three of them, all of them dashed forward and unleashed their supreme divine powers. Some of them even unleashed the flames of undead spirits in an attempt to stop Jiang Xinwu and the other two. Senior Mo, Brother Jiang, you two leave first. Tang Xiaoyu looked at the situation behind him and knew that these people did not want to let them go. Kang Xinmu hesitated for a moment. Brother Jiang, I personally don't have any conflicts with the United Alliance, but the Sky Yuan Palace seems to have had some conflicts with the United Alliance. Not only the Sky Yuan Palace, but the Sky Cloud sect also has some conflicts with the United Alliance. Tang Xiaoyu did not care about these sects, nor did he care about power or status. He also did not care about cultivation. He only wanted to live freely in the world. He especially disliked the Union Alliance. It was probably because of the conflict between the Sky Yuan Palace and the Union Alliance that the Union Alliance disliked the disciples of the Sky Yuan Palace. In short, the Sky Yuan Palace and the Cloud sect are not members of the Union Alliance. After pausing for a moment, Tang Xiaoyu added. It seems that the Everlasting Pavilion has also withdrawn from the United Alliance in recent years. As for what happened between the two, to be honest, I'm quite curious, but I couldn't find out anything. Kang Xinmu listened attentively to Tang Xiaoyu's words. Suddenly, the Everlasting Pavilion was mentioned again. Coupled with Tang Xiaoyu's curious face, Jiang Xinwu could not help but feel helpless. After cultivating for so many years, this was the first time he had seen such a carefree cultivator like Tang Xiaoyu. Hurry up and leave. Tang Xiaoyu thought that the left protector did not like him and wanted to cause trouble for him, so he simply stayed. Although he was wanted by the Heavenly Yuan Palace, eldest senior brother would definitely not ignore him if he was in danger. Tang Xiaoyu was not afraid of the left protector because his eldest senior brother Lien Yi could appear at any time. I feel that something is amiss. Kang Xinmu was deep in thought. According to Tang Xiaoyu, there was a conflict between the United Union and the Heavenly Yuan Palace. Therefore, the people of the United Union would definitely target the disciples of the Heavenly Yuan Palace. However, looking at the current situation, the so-called left protector obviously wanted to keep the three of them here. The reason why Kang Xinmu thought so was because of the space barrier around the city. The casting method of these space barriers was somewhat similar to the casting method of the person in the cave mansion. The person in the cave mansion did not show up in the end. Perhaps, that person was the left protector. Brother Jiang, listen to me. You take the senior away first. I can get away by myself. Tang Xiaoyu made friends with Kang Xinmu out of selfishness because he wanted to see his idol. But after a long time, he understood Kang Xinmu's character. As a friend, he must not watch the United Union bully others. Brother Tang, in the secret realm of the ancient desolate ancient city, the location of the star map lock was a cave mansion. I already came into contact with the space barrier there. But that person's casting method is similar to the one in this city. Kang Shinmu thought for a moment and said. A space barrier similar to the one in this city? Tang Xiaoyu's heart skipped a beat. Haoyan? Tang Xiaoyu immediately thought of that person. Huh. It was the first time for Kang Shinmu to hear the name Haoyan. Haoyan. Let me put it this way. He's a cultivation maniac and obsessed with refining artifacts. He's a famous artificer in the Duan domain. Tang Xiaoyu was confused. I remember that he doesn't like to join in on the fun. In the end, Tang Xiaoyu had to think that Haoyan had been in this secret realm all along, and that it had moved and brought him here. That was the only reason that could explain it at the moment. If it's really Haoyan who moved the cave mansion out, we don't need to worry too much. He must still be in that secret realm. Maybe he's already in a parallel world, like the other world. Tang Xiaoyu's words didn't ease the heavy atmosphere at all. After all, the city in front of them was the left protector of the United Union. Kang Shinmu and the other two had already escaped from the space barrier. 20 cultivators from other realms in the United Union's uniform were chasing after them. None of you can leave. As soon as the left protector's voice fell, the space around them changed dramatically. Then, their vision darkened. The darkness lasted for less than a breath's time, but a second later, they found themselves in the city. A middle-aged man in a purple robe showed up from one side and walked to Kang Shinmu. Left protector, are you crazy? Tang Xiaoyu frowned, his voice full of dissatisfaction. Old friend, long time no see. Is this how you greet me? The left protector smiled and glanced at Kang Shinmu. And this is, by now, Kang Shinmu and the other two were already in the city, but the left protector still couldn't sense Kang Shinmu's real strength. This is an old friend of mine. I went back to my hometown a while ago, so we came out together. Tang Xiaoyu said with a hearty smile. Kang Shinmu noticed that the left protector's expression froze when he heard Tang Xiaoyu's words. He seemed to be afraid of Tang Xiaoyu's hometown. Since he's your old friend, he's an honored guest. Please come in. Tang Xiaoyu was already used to the left protector's sudden change in attitude. Moreover, this was only the left protector's superficial work. He was ruthless and unreasonable. Most importantly, he had always been frivolous. Even the name of the old man from his hometown might not be able to control the left protector. No need to be so polite. We still have things to do, Tang Xiaoyu said lightly. Then, he signaled for Kang Shinmu and Emoya to leave first. Tang Xiaoyu, since your old friend has come to the outer realm, why don't you introduce him to the outer realm? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? As the left protector's voice fell, the space barrier that was originally hidden around the city suddenly rose. Chapter 57-42. Left protector, is this your so-called hospitality? Tang Xiaoyu glanced at the closed city gate and the space rampart that suddenly lit up and said indifferently. Of course, if I don't do this, I can't take you to the Union Alliance as guests. The left protector smiled gently and said. We're very busy. We don't have time to go with you to the Union Alliance as guests, Tang Xiaoyu said in a deep voice. Tang Xiaoyu, you know that this is my own city, which is equivalent to my celestial artifact. Once the city gate is closed and the enchantment appears, it means that the celestial artifact has been activated. I can't stop it. The left protector shrugged his shoulders innocently and smiled faintly. By the way, I haven't asked for this brother's name yet. I can't tell you my name. I'm just an ordinary person, Tang Xiaoyu said casually. He was now clear that this person was here for Kang Shinmu. However, looking at the left protector's situation, he didn't know Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu knew what Tang Xiaoyu was worried about, so he nodded gently. At this moment, the moving city came to a sudden stop. The city gate was opened again. Left protector, what does this mean? Tang Xiaoyu glanced at the open city gate and raised his eyebrows. This is the report of our Union Alliance's spy. The left protector stood up and took a step forward, landing in front of the three people. Moreover, the members of our Union Alliance are still outside. We have to bring them back, right? Outside the city, the disciples of the Union Alliance, who were wearing the uniform of the Union Alliance, gathered together. Seeing the city gate open, they rushed back one by one. Coming in with them was a young man who was dressed casually. The most distinctive feature of the young man was his hair. He had short fluffy hair, which seemed to be scattered, but it was like some kind of mysterious pattern, which made Jiang Shen notice this young man. Seeing this young man, Kang Shinmu's expression froze. Not for anything else, but because he had met this young man a few times. When he entered the desolate ancient city, he saw this young man among the many cultivators. At that time, when General Lang Changhong's derivation array exploded in the ancient city, it had a great impact on the city. The cultivators inside had suffered heavy casualties. He didn't expect to see this young man here again. This young man clearly had an impression of Kang Shinmu. As soon as he entered the city, his gaze inadvertently glanced at Kang Shinmu. Bai Yi, how's the investigation going? Reporting to the left protector, we have found Kang Shinmu's whereabouts. The young man called Bai Yu said respectfully. These words did not surprise Kang Shinmu at all. The moment he saw the young man named Bai Yu, he had thought of this ending. Tang Xiaoyu focused his mind. This person was really here for Kang Shinmu. He was a little anxious. Over the past year, although there had been no trace of Kang Shinmu, he had always heard some legends about Kang Shinmu. Although some of the stories were true, the people who spread the news had obviously exaggerated it, causing it to become more and more ridiculous. The thing that left the deepest impression on Tang Xiaoyu was that Kang Shinmu fought with the disciples of the Everlasting Pavilion alone. How should he put it? It sounded unreliable, but with Kang Shinmu's character, he would really do it. Moreover, although the strength that Kang Shinmu showed on the surface was not very good, his actual combat power was very terrifying. It had only been a year, but Kang Shinmu's cultivation seemed to have improved a lot. Where is he? When the left protector asked this, he glanced at Kang Shinmu. That's him. Bai Yu pointed at Kang Shinmu. Are you sure? The left protector smiled meaningfully when he heard this. This subordinate is sure. Bai Yu replied respectfully. Left protector, why are you so hypocritical? Tang Xiaoyu was getting more and more dissatisfied with the left protector. He had already trapped them in the city, but they were still talking about these things. How boring. Tang Xiaoyu, look at you. You already knew that he was Kang Shinmu? Then why did you say that? Aren't you afraid that the United Alliance will put you on the wanted list? The left protector narrowed his eyes and sneered. Left protector, have you stayed in the city for too long that your brain has aged? I have been wanted by the Tianyuan Palace for so many years. Why would I be afraid of being wanted by you? Moreover, you can only put me on the wanted list. Tang Xiaoyu said disdainfully. The left protector knew that Tang Xiaoyu was not lying. They could only put up a wanted list for Tang Xiaoyu. It would take some effort to catch Tang Xiaoyu. Moreover, if the old man from Tang Xiaoyu's hometown was involved, there would be a lot of trouble. This was what the left protector was afraid of. Tang Xiaoyu gave Kang Shinmu a look, and Kang Shinmu immediately understood. Kang Shinmu, Moya, and Tang Xiaoyu. They did not waste any more time with the left protector. They turned around and rushed to the city gate. Realizing this, the left protector immediately cast a spell to close the city gates, but it was still too late. By the time the city gate was closed, Kang Shinmu and the other two had already rushed out of the city. Moreover, the three of them did not show themselves outside the city. It was as if they had disappeared from sight. The left protector was like Hao Yan. He was also good at refining spatial barriers. Unlike Hao Yan's spatial barrier, which was made of the undead flame, the left protector's spatial barrier also contained the heavenly dark flame. Most importantly, the left protector's master was the ancestor of the ancient fire tribe, one of the 4 great ancestral corpse clans. Left protector, what should we do now? Biyao glanced in the direction of the city gate and asked. Go after them. The left protector's figure moved and disappeared. Biyao cupped his fists respectfully and walked in the direction of the city. The gate of the city was not opened. Biyao walked out of the gate of the city and disappeared on the vast road. Tang Xiaoyu had basically familiarized himself with this secret realm in the past year. Unfortunately, he could not find the exit. Brother Jiang, this is a rough map. Tang Xiaoyu drew a simple map of what he had experienced in the past year. He also gave Jiang Shenwu the map of the time he had entered the mystic realm. Brother Tang, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to tell me. Kang Xinmu knew that Tang Xiaoyu had helped them a lot along the way. Now that he had given him an important map, he was very grateful. Actually, I just want to meet my idol. Although Tang Xiaoyu was usually carefree, when it came to his idol, he seemed to have changed into a different person. It was very awkward. Then, who is your idol? As Kang Xinmu asked, many experts that he had met in the past flashed through his mind. First, he excluded the experts from the Demon God clan, the Talisman Water clan, and the Emperor Bat clan. It's Emperor Shi. Tang Xiaoyu scratched his head and said. Kang Xinmu was stunned. Tang Xiaoyu's idol was his master. You want to meet Emperor Shi? Kang Xinmu asked with a smile. Yes, she is my idol. I have always wanted to meet her, but I have never had the chance. Plus, I am always being chased by Big Brother Lien Yi. It is even more difficult. Tang Xiaoyu grinned. Chapter 57-43. Brother Jiang, I accidentally heard that you and Emperor Shi know each other. This is the reason why I got close to you. Tang Xiaoyu did not hide anything from Kang Xinmu. This was indeed the case. Tang Xiaoyu originally treated Kang Xinmu as if he had met an ordinary cultivator. Even if Kang Xinmu had died in the desolate ancient city, he might not have had any reaction. It was only because he accidentally learned that Kang Xinmu knew his idol, Emperor Shi, that he helped him. As a cultivator, Tang Xiaoyu was well aware of the unwritten rules among cultivators. It was taboo for cultivators to ask about each other. Yes. Tang Xiaoyu was so honest that Kang Xinmu did not mind. I can't contact Emperor Shi for the time being. Kang Xinmu's words were true. He had been away for too long. In addition, he had mistakenly entered this moving secret zone. This secret zone led to a whole new world, the outer domain realm. He had no chance to go back. He had not seen Emperor Shi for more than a year. He really did not know where Emperor Shi was. Kang Xinmu hid the fact that Emperor Shi was his teacher. Okay, then it won't be too late to tell me when you can contact him. Speaking of this, Tang Xiaoyu seemed to have thought of something. He slapped his forehead. I did not say that I have to ask Brother Jiang to tell me where Emperor Shi is. Tang Xiaoyu worshipped Emperor Shi very much. He really wanted to meet Emperor Shi. At the mention of Emperor Shi, he suddenly did not know how to speak. If I know where he is, I will definitely tell you. Kang Xinmu laughed heartily. It was a good thing that his teacher was respected by others. Okay. Tang Xiaoyu had his own things to do. He also knew that Kang Xinmu and Amoya had their own things to do, so he did not stay any longer. The three of them officially parted ways. He didn't know when they would meet again after this separation. Kang Xinmu and Amoya followed the map provided by Tang Xiaoyu and quickly left this place. The left protector was hot on his heels. According to the information sent back by Haoyan, Kang Xinmu had seized the Star Atlas Lock in the secret realm of the Immortals' abode. As expected, Kang Xinmu had also cracked the power of magic power that existed on the Star Atlas Lock. The left protector wasn't interested in the Star Atlas Lock, but he was interested in the power of the Star Atlas Lock. Every cultivator who was about to step into the Gate of Laws would be interested in the power of law. Moreover, according to Hao Yan, Kang Xinmu's strength was mediocre a year ago, and his supreme divine power was only at the 8th level. But in just a year, his supreme divine power had grown to the 9th level. What was worth noting was that Kang Shinmu had more than one type of supreme godly power. Each type of supreme divine power was not weak, and they were unpredictable. From this, it could be inferred that Kang Shinmu had also obtained the star map lock, which was the Dharma seal. Although the left protector had already sensed his own Dharma seal, his Dharma seal was still not perfect, and there were still many shortcomings. He needed to perfect his own Dharma seal, so he needed to devour other Dharma seals. Only when the Dharma seal was perfect could he control the power of law. The left protector would not let Kang Shinmu off like this. He controlled the city and caught up to Kang Shinmu. This time, the left protector did not hold back at all, directly ordering all the members of the alliance in Sealed Abode's abode to capture Kang Shinmu in one fell swoop. Among the many alliance members, Gu Tianzi was included. When Gu Tianzi received the left protector's message, he was at the northern end of Sealed Abode's abode. The northern end was an extremely cold region, and there were ice veins everywhere. The reason he was here was because he had followed Grasshopper all the way here. It was said that Grasshopper had found Feng's whereabouts, but Gu Tianzi looked at the environment here, as well as the surrounding aura, and determined that it was impossible for Feng to be here. That was true, but he had lost track of Grasshopper. After half a day, he still could not find Grasshopper's whereabouts, and now that he received the left protector's message, he was actually very reluctant. Left protector, what do you want? Gu Tianzi asked impatiently. Gu Tianzi, where are you? The left protector knew that Gu Tianzi had entered Sealed's abode purely for fun, and knew that he would not always stay in the same place, so he asked. In the northern end. Gu Tianzi said indifferently. In the northern end, not the northernmost territory. In Sealed's abode's abode, there was a certain difference between the northern end and the northernmost territory. Any cultivator could freely enter and exit the northern end, but not the northernmost territory. The northernmost territory was filled with a lot of supreme divine force of nature, but the supreme divine force of nature there was particularly heterogeneous, and it was also filled with non-supreme divine force of nature. Once a supreme cultivator devoured it, not only would he not be able to improve his supreme divine force, but it would also cause the supreme divine force to completely disintegrate and dissipate. In serious cases, it was possible that a supreme cultivator would be buried in that place. As for the non-supreme divine force of nature, no one had yet analyzed what kind of power it was. In the maps made by the predecessors, there were very few descriptions of the northernmost territory. I know. The left protector said loudly. With your ability, you can't go to the northernmost territory. Pfft, isn't it just the northernmost territory? Why can't I go there? I'm just looking for someone, and I don't have the time to go there. Gu Tianzi immediately retorted when his strength was questioned. Alright, then can you come over for a while? The left protector said, I'm now at the place where we parted. What's the matter? Gu Tianzi's tone became extremely impatient again. At this time, there are not many people in the abode who are your match, right? There are. What surprised Gu Tianzi was that the left protector was very certain. It's a youth called Kang Shinmu. He seems to have supreme spatial power. Supreme spatial power? Gu Tianzi exclaimed. Compared to Kang Shinmu, he cared more about supreme spatial power. At that time, he had also seen the supreme spatial power of nature. Unfortunately, the supreme spatial power did not match with his talent power, and he could not devour it at all. When a supreme cultivator devoured supreme divine force, the first requirement was for it to match with their talent power. But it could also not match. Some cultivators' cultivation methods were more special. Even if the supreme divine force devoured did not match with their talent power, they could still devour it. Under such circumstances, the supreme divine force devoured belonged to the natural power, and would exist in the cultivator's soul, consciousness, and sea of consciousness. Once the opportunity came, they could comprehend this supreme divine force, and from there, they could use it as their own. Gu Tianzi had always been obsessed with the supreme spatial force of nature. He knew that Hao Yan was one of the first cultivators to possess the supreme spatial force. Ever since that incident, the supreme spatial force had become the supreme divine power of a single element. Chapter 57-44. Gu Tianze was no stranger to Kang Xinmu. When he first met Kang Xinmu's supreme divine power was only at the 4th level. He wasn't even worthy to be his opponent. Unexpectedly, in just a year, Kang Xinmu's cultivation had advanced to such a level. What surprised Gu Tianze the most was that Kang Xinmu had comprehended the supreme power of space. This was the supreme divine power that Gu Tianze had always yearned for. However, this was also good. Since Kang Xinmu had obtained the supreme power of space, then as long as he defeated Kang Xinmu, he could directly seize the supreme power of space from him, which would save him a lot of trouble. Wait for me. After Gu Tianze indifferently threw down a sentence, his figure disappeared on the spot. The north end was not far from the left protector's city. Moreover, Kang Xinmu and Emoya were heading towards the north end. For Gu Tianze, it was a good thing. Senior Emoya, according to the map, the north end is in front of us. Kang Xinmu had already analyzed the map that Tang Xiaoyu gave him. This map not only marked the location, but also marked the places that needed to be noted in the area. It was like the north end, where one could go to the extreme north territory. The existence of the extreme north territory was equivalent to the forbidden area of this sealed secret territory. Tang Xiaoyu had never been to the extreme north territory, so he wasn't very familiar with it. There was a small line of words on the map, which was Tang Xiaoyu's guess. There was a rumor that said that one could leave the sealed secret territory through the extreme north territory. Whether this was true or not, Tang Xiaoyu didn't dare to confirm. It was the first time that Kang Xinmu and Emoya came to this secret territory, so naturally, they didn't know much about it. To be safe, the two didn't plan to go to the extreme north territory. Thus, when the two realized that it was the north end in front of them, they went around it. The northern area was special. Although it occupied a large area, the entrances and exits were one way. Kang Xinmu and Emoya were aware of the current situation. The left protector would not let them go so easily. Once they entered the northern end, they would definitely be surrounded by the left protector. At that time, they would have no choice but to go to the northernmost weave. Of course, when the two of them went around the north end, they deliberately set up a cover. When they arrived at the northern entrance, the two of them rushed in. Afterwards, Kang Xinmu used the supreme spatial force to bring Emoya out from the other side of the space. The spatial essence of this place was enshrouded in the power of ice, so unless a cultivator was extremely proficient in spatial spell techniques, it would be very difficult to discover this place. Kang Xinmu and Emoya took the opportunity to leave the north end. Closer to the north was a large forest. A year ago, it was a huge forest, but now it had become a desert. In this year, Tang Xiaoyu had passed by this place twice. The first time he saw it, it was still a big forest. The second time he saw it, it had already become a desert. There was a difference of several months between the two times. What happened in these few months? How could such a large forest turn into a desert? Kang Xinmu looked at the desert in front of him with a frown. There doesn't seem to be any energy aura around here, Emoya said as she sensed the space around this desert. The two of them guessed that a great battle had taken place here, and after the battle ended, it became this scene. Then, the strength of the cultivators on both sides became a mystery. The cultivators who entered this secret realm had all reached the Supreme Divine Force level, and many of them had Supreme Divine Force at least the 5th stage. It was naturally not difficult for a 5th stage Supreme Divine Force cultivator to destroy a large forest. However, they only destroyed the forest, and did not affect the area outside the forest. This was the problem. Either the area outside the forest was special, or there was something similar to a spatial barrier. These spatial barriers were not something a 5th stage cultivator could destroy. Moreover, the cultivators of both sides who were fighting had supreme divine powers. They had all reached the 8th level or even higher. In this way, these two cultivators could use their own strength to destroy the spatial barrier around the forest, and even affect a large part of the surrounding secret realm. Based on this analysis, the strength of the two sides was more inclined to the first scenario. Two fifth-stage cultivators with supreme divine strength, why would they not hesitate to fight each other and destroy this great forest? Kang Shinmu, there's something strange in the space ahead. Suddenly, Senior Moya spoke. Jiang Shenwu raised his head and saw that Moya had walked into the desert at some point in time. She bent down and grabbed a handful of sand, her expression solemn. Kang Shinmu clearly saw Senior Moya grab the sand, but the sand quickly disappeared. No matter how much sand Moya grabbed, the sand would quickly disappear. It seemed that as long as the sand left the sand, it would disappear. Is there something underground? Kang Shinmu suddenly thought of the special mark on the map. Although Tang Xiaoyu did not find anything strange here, when he passed by the northern end, he heard some news from some of the experts there. Therefore, there were special marks, but they also reminded him that he had only heard that there was something here, and he did not know the specifics. Kang Shinmu put away the map and released his soul consciousness towards the sand below. However, he did not expect that his soul consciousness would be blocked by some kind of power. Kang Shinmu controlled his soul consciousness to expand forward. His soul consciousness could expand, but it could not go down. Moreover, it could not go down only on this piece of sand. Outside of the sand, his soul consciousness could go down normally. Now, he could basically confirm that there was something below this piece of sand. There was also a power that could block his soul consciousness. If it was related to the soul consciousness, Kang Shinmu only thought of the supreme soul power. Regrettably, ever since he had devoured the supreme soul power, the supreme soul power had not improved at all. It had always maintained its original strength. This made Kang Shinmu think that if he wanted to improve the level of the supreme soul power, he had to devour new supreme soul power. Kang Shinmu, can you sense the existence of spatial barriers around us? Moya suddenly asked. Yes. When Kang Shinmu released his soul consciousness just now, he had already sensed the existence of spatial barriers in the surrounding space. He had first seen spatial barriers in that cave abode, and they had been refined by the flame of dead spirits. Not long ago, he had met the left protector. There was also a large area of complex spatial barriers around the left protector's city. Other than the flame of dead spirits, there was also the heavenly dark flame. Some of the spatial barriers here only had the flame of dead spirits, some had the heavenly dark flame, and some had the flame of dead spirits and the heavenly dark flame. In short, there were many types of spatial barriers around this space. Chapter 57-45. Above this piece of sand, there were scattered spatial barriers. These spatial barriers were irregular and did not seem to have been created by humans. But these spatial barriers only existed above the sand and did not seem to be formed naturally. Suddenly, Kang Shinmu noticed that these irregular spatial barriers were slowly moving. A thought suddenly occurred to him. This piece of sand had previously been a large forest, but it had been affected by the battle of experts and turned into sand. In other words, the aftermath of the battle of those experts had affected the space here and formed these spatial barriers. Kang Shinmu, could these spatial barriers have come from below? Moya suddenly asked with a serious voice. Moya had been paying attention to the changes in the sand since she had arrived here. Where the sand and the air met, spatial barriers would appear from time to time. Combined with the irregular spatial barriers above the sand, Moya had such a speculation. It's possible. Moya's words were like enlightenment. Kang Shinmu suddenly understood. The spatial layer below the sand was special. Kang Shinmu's soul consciousness could not dive too deep. This time, Kang Shinmu paid special attention to where the sand and air met and found that the spatial barriers were coming from below. Even though the speed was very slow, it was enough to confirm that these irregular spatial barriers floating above the sand were all coming from below. Since these spatial barriers could appear under the sand, it meant that there was an expert under the sand, or there was some unknown parallel space under the sand. Kang Shinmu was not curious about the unknown. He was always aware of the current situation, so he and Emoya circled around the sand and left. Not long after Kang Shinmu and Emoya left, the left protector also caught up. He saw the sand at a glance. And the spatial barriers that were slowly coming from the sand. A year ago, Wanzong had said that he would come here. At that time, this place was still a lush forest. When the left protector saw the sand, he was sure that Wanzong had gone there. The Wanzong that the left protector mentioned sounded strange, but for Kang Shinmu, he was not a stranger. He had even met him a few times. This Wanzong was the seemingly ordinary youth that Kang Shinmu had seen in the ancient desolate city. He was also Gu Tianzi's target this time. In the past year, the sealed mystic realm, which had been constantly moving, suddenly stopped at a certain point in time. The time that the sealed secret realm stayed in was very short. During this time, Wanzong had left the secret realm. Just when many cultivators in the sealed secret realm thought that the exit was about to open, the secret realm moved again. At the same time, Wanzong reappeared in the secret realm. When Wanzong came to the Great Forest, which was the present sandy land, Gu Tianzi had the opportunity to capture Wanzong, but he was disturbed by Grasshopper, which ruined Gu Tianzi's plan. Moreover, Wanzong had taken away the inheritance power that Gu Tianzi had just obtained. Gu Tianzi was so angry that he chased her to the north and almost went to the northernmost territory. Although Gu Tianzi did not see clearly what the inheritance power that he had obtained was, he was basically sure that the inheritance power that existed in the sealed secret realm was most likely the power of the seal's inheritance. Which cultivator in Lai Feng's secret realm did not need Lai Feng's inheritance? Different from Gu Tianzi, the left protector had a good relationship with Wanzong. Wanzong. The left protector only shouted his name, and Wanzong sensed the left protector's existence. With Wanzong's help, Kang Shinmu would certainly not be able to escape. The left protector simply left the city and entered the sand. Walking to a certain place in the sand, the left protector's figure had already disappeared. At this time, Kang Shinmu and Emoya had already left the location of the sand. But the direction that the two were heading was the north, which was where Gu Tianzi was coming. "Senior, please wait." The closer they were to the north, the more Kang Shinmu noticed the abnormality of the space in the north. Moreover, there was an extremely obscure power that was rushing towards this side. At the same time, the space also followed layer by layer. There was a powerhouse displaying a space-type secret technique. The current Kang Shinmu was already very proficient in the use of the supreme power of space. Very soon, he noticed who the approaching person was. It was Gu Tianzi, who he had a few confrontations with in the ancient desolate city. When he first met Gu Tianzi, Kang Shinmu could not see through Gu Tianzi's chi meridians. After that, Kang Shinmu met Gu Tianzi again in General Lang Changhong's battle formation. That should be the last time he saw Gu Tianzi. At that time, the battle formation trapped them, but Gu Tianzi was able to enter and exit calmly. Now that Kang Shinmu's supreme divine power had already had a qualitative breakthrough, he saw the reason why Gu Tianzi could freely enter and exit General Lang Changhong's battle formation at that time. At that time, Gu Tianzi displayed a spatial rampart. He cleverly used the characteristics of the spatial rampart, treating the spatial rampart as a kind of space secret technique, so as to achieve the purpose of speeding up his journey. From a certain perspective, this principle had certain similarities with the myriad manifestations origin superimposition technique. Both were through compressing space, thereby shortening the distance to the destination. "Senior, it's that person." When Kang Shinmu sensed Gu Tianzi's aura, Emoya also sensed it. The two decisively chose a new direction. To them, Gu Tianzi's identity was unknown. In this kind of mystic realm, there were only two camps of cultivators. They were either friends or enemies. Kang Shinmu released the supreme power of space and left together with Emoya. Gu Tianzi's speed was not slow, but he always thought that Kang Shinmu could not achieve anything big, so he did not take it to heart. It was to the extent that when he rushed over, he discovered that Kang Shinmu and Emoya had already disappeared. There was not even any aura of the two people left in the surrounding space. There was still some feeling just now, but in just a breath's time, the two people's aura had already disappeared. Kang Shinmu, what's ahead? Emoya sensed the air movement in front, as well as the aura floating in the space, and asked. I remember it's a river. Other than that, there are no special marks. Speaking of this, Kang Shinmu was also a little puzzled. Tang Xiaoyu clearly marked a river. When Kang Shinmu was looking at the map, Emoya had already swept to the riverside, sizing up the long river not far away. Kang Shinmu quickly followed. This river is the exit, right? Suddenly, Emoya said softly. Exit? Kang Shinmu was surprised when he heard this. Although Tang Xiaoyu had marked this river, no matter how he looked at it, it was just an ordinary river. This may be the exit. Emoya responded. Senior, you mean, this river can lead to the outside of the mystic realm? Kang Shinmu thought for a moment and asked. Chapter 57-46. Kang Shinmu looked at the river in front of him again. Compared to the other places around it, this river was just an ordinary river. Around the river, there was the aura of the secret realm floating in the air. There were also some scattered space barriers in some places. This was the first time that Kang Shinmu looked at the sealed secret realm seriously. At that time, he entered the secret realm purely by chance. After entering, he realized that his movement technique was limited in the secret realm. Now that he looked at it, he understood that the movement technique was affected by the space barriers in the space. In fact, there had always been all kinds of space barriers in this sealed secret realm. Compared to the surroundings, the river in front of him could not be any more ordinary. It was precisely because it was ordinary that a passage to the outside of the secret realm could be opened. Kang Shinmu finally understood what Emoya meant. Senior, please wait a moment. Kang Shinmu immediately exerted his supreme space force and opened a passage in the river. He was sure that this passage would lead to the outside of the secret realm. However, he could not be sure what was beyond this passage. It was most likely to be the outer region. The outer region was an unfamiliar place to them, but it was also a place that Kang Shinmu had to go to. The 8-god star plate was originally a magic item of the Wuxia Pavilion in the outer region. The place that the 8-god star plate lacked was most likely in the outer region. Emoya stood at the side, her beautiful eyes fixed on Kang Shinmu and watched as Kang Shinmu opened the passage. Her eyes, which had always been cold, were now filled with some complicated emotions. Senior, Kang Shinmu was about to tell Emoya about the passage, but he saw that Emoya's expression was not good. He was a little confused. Kang Shinmu, you must take care of yourself on this trip. Emoya paused and said gently. As soon as she said that, Kang Shinmu's mind went blank for a short while. Then, he recollected his thoughts. In fact, before entering the sealed secret realm, Kang Shinmu had expected that he would have to part ways with Senior Emoya one day. It was just that he wasn't sure when they would be parting, but he didn't expect it to be now. Senior as well. Kang Shinmu smiled. Goodbye. Emoya smiled gently. Goodbye. Kang Shinmu smiled as well. Actually, he still had something to say to Emoya, but when he saw Emoya's smile, he didn't know what to say for a moment. As soon as Emoya's voice fell, a circle of white ripples appeared around her body and her figure immediately disappeared. Kang Shinmu extended his hand, wanting to stop Emoya. His hand still missed. The white ripples quickly dissipated, leaving no trace in the air. Kang Shinmu laughed helplessly. From the looks of it, Emoya was much stronger than he had imagined. Emoya often mentioned that her cultivation technique was special. The origin of her cultivation technique must be related to where she was going this time. He didn't know why Emoya suddenly wanted to leave, but it was normal for her to part ways. All he could do was to keep getting stronger so that he could have a better reunion next time. Kang Shinmu entered the passageway. At the same time, Gu Tianze rushed over. There was a very ordinary river here. Cultivators who entered the mystic realm, as long as they passed by here, would know about this. But no one would waste their energy on an ordinary river. Initially, only Tang Xiaoyu marked this river. He believed that this river led to the outside world and was considered the exit of the mystic realm. Gu Tianze and the others had the same thought as Tang Xiaoyu, but Gu Tianze didn't think so much at that time. At this time, thinking that Kang Shinmu might leave the mystic realm through this river, he hurried over. Sensing Kang Shinmu's aura entering the passageway, Gu Tianze immediately cast a spell to stop Kang Shinmu. However, Gu Tianze's spell seemed to have hit a wall and couldn't penetrate that layer of space. Space barrier? Gu Tianze could only think of space barrier. Then, the left protector also rushed over. Since when did a space barrier appear here? Gu Tianze's brows furrowed. He released his soul consciousness and probed the space around this river. This time, he was shocked again. The space barrier that he had sensed just now had disappeared. His soul consciousness could only sense the scattered space barrier that existed in the surrounding space. Did that kid Kang Shinmu enter here? The left protector came a step too late and didn't sense the space barrier that had existed at that moment. Gu Tianze responded and rushed into the space in the river. At this time, Kang Shinmu had already left the mystic realm through the passageway. The space barrier that had stopped Gu Tianze just now was not Kang Shinmu's power. It was the power that Emoya had left behind. When Emoya was taken away, she had sensed that Gu Tianze was rushing over and left behind a space barrier. Because of the existence of Emoya's space barrier, Kang Shinmu had successfully left the mystic realm. After Kang Shinmu left the mystic realm, this river became unusual. Affected by Kang Shinmu's supreme power of space barriers started to gather above the river. Even the river water started to have space barriers. Because of this, it was obviously more difficult to leave the mystic realm through this river. Damn it! Gu Tianze was forced to escape from the space barrier. Gu Tianze found that he had underestimated Kang Shinmu's power once again. Kang Shinmu could leave the mystic realm through this river, but he couldn't. Something seems to be wrong in the far north territory. The left protector suddenly said. When you left the north, did you notice who went to the far north territory? Green grasshopper. Speaking of this, Gu Tianze suddenly thought of a person. And that Wanzong. Wanzong? Isn't he on the other side of the desert? The left protector focused, puzzled. Who said that the person who caused the chaos in the far north territory must stay in the far north territory? Gu Tianze said lightly. The left protector did not deny Gu Tianze's words. Now, the facts were very clear. Something had happened in the far north territory. Something had happened in the far north territory, and even the entire mystic realm had changed. The sealed mystic realm began to collapse on a large scale. All the cultivators inside were swept into the shattered space. And the place that these shattered spaces led to was the outer territory. At first, the left protector only thought that something had happened in the far north territory and did not take it seriously. After all, capturing Kang Shinmu was more important. When the mystic realm collapsed, the left protector realized that something was wrong. Gu Tianze's expression was extremely gloomy. The collapse of the sealed mystic realm could only mean that the power of the seal had been inherited by someone. In other words, the power of the seal already had an heir. An heir, Gu Tianze gritted his teeth. Could it be Kang Shinmu? The left protector's guess was not unreasonable. The moment Kang Shinmu left the mystic realm collapsed. It was most likely that he had obtained the power of the seal's inheritance. Gu Tianze's expression was frighteningly gloomy. I hope it's him. Chapter 57-47. Kang Shinmu, who had been mentioned frequently, had just left the spatial passageway when he sensed a violent tremor in the space behind him. If he had not withdrawn his supreme spatial force in time, the abnormal fluctuations from the space would have definitely affected him. The exit of the passageway that Kang Shinmu had opened from the river was slowly closing as Kang Shinmu withdrew his supreme spatial force. However, just as Jiang Shenwu sensed an abnormal fluctuation coming from the secret realm behind him, the slowly closing passageway's exit stopped. Kang Shinmu no longer cared about where he was at this moment. He tried his best to fly forward and put some distance between himself and the exit of the passageway. The moment Kang Shinmu left the passageway, the exit of the passageway suddenly split open. At the same time, the shape of the secret plane appeared in Kang Shinmu's field of vision. The originally sealed secret plane was a spatial secret plane. It was impossible to see the situation inside the secret plane from the outside. One could only enter the secret plane through some secret plane entrances. At this moment, Kang Shinmu was outside the secret plane. He could still clearly see everything inside the secret plane. This was the first time Kang Shinmu had seen such a phenomenon. He guessed that the secret plane might be collapsing. The collapse of the secret plane also meant that the space inside the secret plane would merge with the outside world. Otherwise, the space inside the secret plane would be transferred to another world. If the space inside the secret plane was transferred to another world, it meant that the door to another world would be opened. Being outside the secret plane, Kang Shinmu could only roughly see the scene inside the secret plane. He could not see anything else clearly. After glancing at the secret plane one more time, Kang Shinmu turned to leave. The moment he took a step forward, a black light swept out from the passageway that he had just left the secret plane. It flew straight towards Kang Shinmu's back. Kang Shinmu only felt an extremely cold aura attack him. He instinctively sealed his soul, sea of consciousness and chi meridians. That abnormally cold and gloomy aura suddenly disappeared the moment it touched Kang Shinmu's back. Even with Kang Shinmu's current abilities, he couldn't sense what kind of power it was or where it went. At this moment, Kang Shinmu sensed that the 7 devouring devil sealing art had suddenly lit up. Unlike before, when the 7 devouring demon sealing art lit up, the engraving was white. This was completely different from the 7 devouring devil sealing art's black markings. The 7 devouring devil sealing art engraved with a white light that lasted for a moment before disappearing. When the white light completely disappeared, Kang Shinmu once again saw a black light flash on the 7 devouring devil sealing art. At the same time, Feng Ling showed up. Feng Ling, who had disappeared for a period of time, reappeared. Kang Shinmu, that power doesn't belong to you. You'd better not touch it. Feng Ling's voice reverberated in Kang Shinmu's mind. Kang Shinmu naturally understood that the power Feng Ling mentioned was the power that had suddenly intruded into his body and caused the 7 devouring devil sealing art engravings to light up. Kang Shinmu was also very vigilant about the power that had suddenly intruded into his body. What made him a little relieved was that this power seemed to have been temporarily absorbed by the 7 devouring devil sealing art. Since that was the case, he wouldn't pay much attention to it. Compared to this, Kang Shinmu was more interested in the source of this power. Feng Ling, did the secret domain collapse? Kang Shinmu hesitated for a moment before asking. Yes, the sealed power of inheritance has an heir, so the secret domain collapsed. In other words, everything in the secret domain will be scattered in this world. Regarding the collapse of the secret domain, Feng Ling didn't hide anything. After saying that, Feng Ling's figure disappeared. From Feng Ling's words, Kang Shinmu had a general understanding of the source of that power. It was most likely a part of Feng's power of inheritance. At this moment, Kang Shinmu had many doubts in his mind. Was Feng Ling the spirit of the 7 devouring devil sealing art engravings? What was the relationship between him and the first owner of the 7 devouring devil sealing art? There was also the engravings of the 7 devouring devil sealing art. All along, when the engravings of the 7 devouring devil sealing art lit up, it appeared to be black. But after the 7 devouring devil sealing art engravings absorbed that mysterious power, when the engravings lit up, it actually appeared to be white. After the mysterious power in the secret domain entered Kang Shinmu's body, the secret domain collapsed with a loud bang. Everything in the secret domain merged with the outside world. Kang Shinmu was hit by this huge impact, and his figure fell into a nearby space rampart. With the protection of this layer of space rampart, Kang Shinmu was not attacked by the powerful force produced by the collapse of the secret domain. In Kang Shinmu's impression, the impact of the secret domain's collapse lasted for a long time. When the fluctuations outside the space rampart gradually subsided, Kang Shinmu left the space rampart. At this time, the place he was at was the place he didn't want to go the most, but sooner or later, he would go there. This place was the outer domain. Moreover, the place where Kang Shinmu was now happened to be outside the everlasting pavilion's mountain gate. When the spatial barrier dissipated, Jiang Shenwu was in a canyon. He skimmed through it for a while. He skimmed a little and came to a position at the foot of a mountain, just in time to see a stone tablet not far away. The stone tablet was engraved with the name Everlasting Pavilion. Looking up at the towering steps, he guessed that it must lead to the Everlasting Pavilion. Although Kang Shinmu wanted to find the base of the 8-god star plate as soon as possible, it was obviously not the time. He turned around and left without hesitation. The sealed secret domain had been in a moving state because the sealed power of inheritance existed in the secret domain. Now that the sealed power of inheritance had an heir, the sealed secret domain collapsed on a large scale. As early as a year ago, someone predicted that the sealed secret domain would move to the outer domain. As soon as the sealed secret domain entered the outer domain, it collapsed on a large scale. Everything in the space of the secret realm, including the cultivators in the secret realm, had basically been thrown out into the outer realm. These cultivators who were expelled because of the collapse of the secret domain included the left protector and others. Of course, when the left protector realized his current situation, he was also a little depressed. He was expelled from the secret domain, but his city was gone. He had already searched around the vicinity, but he still couldn't find the city. Instead, he saw Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu. When the left protector saw Kang Shinmu, he also noticed that this was the Everlasting Pavilion. How dare you appear here? The left protector smiled sinisterly. Anyway, he couldn't find the city in a short time, so he might as well take down Kang Shinmu first. If you can appear here, why can't I? Kang Shinmu sized up the situation in front of him. He could clearly see the left protector's supreme divine power cultivation. They were both in the 9th level, and he had come into contact with the supreme 5 elements power before. Hand over the star map lock. Chapter 57-48. A gust of wind blew past, and a giant object landed on the side. It was Ao Tong's puppet, the blood mantis. Seeing the blood mantis, Kang Shinmu was slightly surprised. He and Emoya had entered the sealed secret realm by chance, and the blood mantis was sucked into the secret realm as well. Too many things had happened in the secret realm, and there had been no trace of the blood mantis. He never thought that the blood mantis would be in the hands of the left protector. Your method of refining the heart-devouring blood mantis is not bad. The left protector had already fought with the blood mantis before this. When they met the blood mantis had no consciousness and attacked anyone it saw. Speaking of which, the left protector had spent a lot of effort to suppress the blood mantis and temporarily control it. Although he had temporarily controlled the blood centipede, he had not taken control of it. The blood centipede would eventually lose control. The left protector found the imprint left by Kang Shinmu on the blood mantis, confirming that the owner of the blood mantis was Kang Shinmu. Originally, the left protector wanted to erase the puppet imprint, but this blood mantis was different from the other heart-devouring blood mantis. Only by killing the blood mantis owner could the puppet imprint be removed. The left protector only found the imprint on the blood mantis, but he was unfamiliar with Kang Shinmu. He even suspected that Kang Shinmu wasn't from the outer region. Moreover, he had heard many stories about Jiang Shenwu in the process of searching for him. He was very surprised by these stories that had been passed down. He was merely a cultivator of the 5th level of the Supreme Divine Power realm. What right did he have to provoke General Ling Chonghong? And provoke the everlasting pavilion of the outer region all by himself? Now, the cultivation of Kang Shinmu that appeared in front of the left protector was different from the rumored cultivation. However, after reaching level 9 of supreme divine power, Kang Shinmu could really do those things in the rumors. The left protector came personally to return my blood mantis. I should be grateful. Kang Shinmu looked at the blood mantis and smiled. Return? Kid, aren't you overestimating yourself? The left protector raised an eyebrow. With a wave of her hand, the blood mantis moved. Moreover, his target was Kang Shinmu. With the strength of Kang Shinmu's current soul consciousness, refining the heart-devouring blood centipede was not a difficult task. Moreover, this heart-devouring blood centipede was his puppet. Kang Shinmu released his soul consciousness, sweeping towards Blood-Maned. Blood-Maned, who had been charging straight at Kang Shinmu, suddenly had his chi and blood surge, and his intimidating aura increased exponentially. Seeing this, the left protector sneered, killed by the blood puppet that he personally refined. This is the first time I've seen something like this. The left protector burst out laughing, and so did Kang Shinmu. However, in the eyes of the left protector, Kang Shinmu's smile was merely a bluff before his death. He had to admit that the heart-devouring blood centipede Kang Shinmu had refined was strong. Although the blood centipede didn't have a consciousness, it obeyed its master. More importantly, this blood centipede had retained its unparalleled divine power. Without the control of this blood centipede, the left protector wasn't sure if this blood centipede's unparalleled divine power could improve. If this blood centipede's unparalleled divine power could improve like a normal cultivator's, then it would be a sharp weapon. The moment the blood centipede approached Kang Shinmu, the left protector's pupils shrank. Immediately, he moved to the side, and the blood centipede's figure suddenly appeared where he had been standing. If he hadn't moved just now, the blood centipede's hand would have passed through his body. Everything had happened too suddenly, and the left protector was still frightened even now. Looking at Kang Shinmu, there was no blood centipede in front of him. It was obvious that he was standing alone. His expression was calm, as if everything that had happened just now had nothing to do with him. After all, this blood centipede was Kang Shinmu's heart-devouring blood centipede. Even if the left protector had temporarily controlled the blood centipede still obeyed Kang Shinmu. Not to mention the current Kang Shinmu, even the Kang Shinmu from a year ago could easily take control of the blood centipede. The blood centipede's punch missed, but it didn't stop. Instead, it turned and aimed at the left protector. Moreover, when the blood centipede punched, its figure disappeared. The left protector was familiar with this scene. What shocked him was that he could still predict the blood centipede's movements at that time. After all, the blood centipede's speed was so fast that it gave people the illusion that it disappeared into thin air. Therefore, he could accurately predict where it would land next. The blood centipede's current strength was different from before. When its figure disappeared, it wasn't because it was fast or because it used some secret space technique. Instead, it directly penetrated through space and skimmed through it. To a certain extent, this kind of technique was also a kind of manifestation origin stacking technique. The left protector, who knew the blood centipede's strength well, didn't dare to let down his guard in the face of the blood centipede's attack. It was also at this time that the left protector completely understood the blood centipede's true strength. He had encountered the heart-devouring blood centipede before, so he had a certain understanding of puppets like the blood centipede. It was the first time he had seen a puppet's combat strength increase along with its master. He had never even heard of such a thing. The left protector could naturally guess that the blood centipede's combat strength had suddenly increased because Kang Shinmu had regained control. Because of Kang Shinmu, the blood centipede entangled the left protector. The left protector couldn't get away for a while. In fact, it was the first time Kang Shinmu had discovered such a thing. Logically speaking, after the heart-devouring blood centipede was refined, its combat strength should be fixed at a certain level. However, when he regained control of the blood centipede, he discovered that its combat strength had increased by a level. Moreover, its own supreme divine power had suddenly increased. Kang Shinmu speculated that the reason why the blood centipede's combat strength had increased might be related to covering the mark. Covering the original mark with a new mark was equivalent to refining a puppet again, and the puppet's combat strength would increase. Seeing that the blood centipede could fight with the left protector and was not at a disadvantage at all, Kang Shinmu couldn't help but be surprised. Since the blood centipede's mark was covered, its combat strength would increase. Then, would the method to increase the puppet's supreme divine power be the same? Of course, this was only Kang Shinmu's guess. Whether this method could increase the blood centipede's supreme divine power or not had yet to be tested. This was the territory of the Everlasting Pavilion. The fluctuations caused by the battle between the left protector and the blood centipede naturally attracted the attention of the people of the Everlasting Pavilion. The Great Elder of the Everlasting Pavilion had appeared. The Great Elder of the Everlasting Pavilion, Nangong Yi, was one of the direct bloodline successors of the Nangong family. Nangong Yi had already calculated that the sealed secret realm would come to the outer territory during this period of time, but he wasn't very clear about the specific day it would descend. Just a quarter of an hour ago, he sensed the changes in the outer territory space and went out to check. This time, Nangong Yi returned from outside, not from the Everlasting Pavilion. Chapter 57-49. Kang Shinmu kept the blood mantis, but the left protector didn't know. In the left protector's knowledge, the blood mantis was elusive. At this moment, he only thought that the puppet was about to launch its next attack. Therefore, even though the blood mantis was gone, the left protector was still nervous. Nangong Yi saw Kang Shinmu and the left protector as soon as he came over. "I didn't know that two distinguished guests were coming, please come in." Those who came were guests. Nangong Yi warmly invited Kang Shinmu and the left protector to go to Wuxia Pavilion. Nangong Yi. The left protector glanced at Kang Shinmu and then at Nangong Yi. Only then did he know that it was Kang Shinmu who kept the blood mantis. "Oh, it's the left protector." The left protector walked over. Nangong Yi recognized the left protector based on his identity card. Wuxia Pavilion was also a member of the United Union. Since the United Union's headquarters came to visit in person, Wuxia Pavilion would definitely welcome them. "This must be your good friend, right?" Nangong Yi said. "Yes." The left protector answered first. Kang Shinmu frowned. Was this guy trying to trick him into going to Wuxia Pavilion? "You're dead." The left protector looked at Kang Shinmu's eyes and a cold light flashed in his squinted eyes. "You can call him Kang Shinmu." The left protector said word by word in a low voice. "Young Master Jiang, sorry for not going out to meet you." Nangong Yi smiled heartily. "Elder Nangong is too polite." Kang Shinmu smiled and cupped his fists. Although he had to go to Wuxia Pavilion to find the whereabouts of the 8 God Star plates sooner or later, it was obviously not the right time. Wouldn't it be courting death to barge in rashly? "Please come in." Nangong Yi invited Kang Shinmu and the left protector again. "Elder Nangong, I still have something to deal with. It's not convenient for me to come today." Kang Shinmu said politely. "Brother Jiang, what's so important about you? Since you're here today, let's go to the Wuxia Pavilion together." The left protector walked to Kang Shinmu's side and patted Kang Shinmu's shoulder. He was certain that Kang Shinmu would definitely not make a move at this time, but he did not expect that when he patted Kang Shinmu's shoulder, he felt an extremely cold aura suddenly sweep into his palm. This aura appeared very suddenly and disappeared just as quickly. By the time the left protector sensed it, the aura had already entered his palm. Even so, he still had to appear extremely calm in front of Nangong Yi. "The two of you have come from afar, how could I not welcome you with closed doors?" Nangong Yi smiled faintly. "Young Master Jiang, please do not feel restrained. Elder Nangong's words are too serious. I really have something urgent to do, so please excuse me. Kang Shinmu's expression was calm, and his words were well controlled. Seeing that his trick was useless, the left protector was about to make a move, but he suddenly met Kang Shinmu's gaze. That pair of slightly narrowed eyes contained a bloodthirsty killing intent. The corners of his lips curled into a faint smile, full of warning. At the same time, the left protector felt the blood in his body suddenly surge. As his blood surged violently, there seemed to be a cold aura flowing through his meridians, entering his soul, consciousness, and sea of consciousness. This process happened in less than a breath's time, and the left protector did not have time to react at all. When the left protector sensed that a strange aura from Kang Shinmu's body had entered his body, he had already prepared a plan to deal with it. He condensed his own strength and sealed his meridians, soul, consciousness, and sea of consciousness. However, this did not prevent the sudden energy from invading his body. Then I'll take my leave first. Kang Shinmu politely said to Nangong Yi, took a deep look at the left protector, and turned to leave. Since he was already in the outer region, he had to properly understand the distribution of forces in the outer region. Especially the 4 great sects in the outer region. Other than the Everlasting Pavilion, which he already had an enmity with, there was also the Heaven Yuan Palace, the Cloud Sect, and the Qing Sect. Through Tang Xiaoyu, he had a rough understanding of the Heaven Yuan Palace. As for the Cloud Sect and the Qing Sect, they were 2 completely unfamiliar sections. The left protector watched helplessly as Jiang Shenwu left. There was nothing she could do. If he told Nangong Yi about Kang Shinmu's situation now, he would not believe him for a while. The worst thing was the aura left behind by Kang Shinmu. As long as that aura remained in his body, the hidden danger would always exist. The left protector regretted his actions back then. They were all supreme cultivators, and they were about to step into the gate of law. How could they enter the secret realm without any special methods? They actually thought that Kang Shinmu would obediently follow them to the Everlasting Pavilion. Left protector, what's wrong with you? Nangong Yi saw that the left protector's expression was a little bad and asked. Nothing, let's go back first. The left protector was a little annoyed. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that his soul consciousness was being disturbed. He had to expel the power of Kang Shinmu as soon as possible. After leaving the Everlasting Pavilion, Kang Shinmu headed straight for the nearby city. The collapse of the sealed secret realm did not have much impact on the outer region. However, after the secret realm collapsed, many cultivators in the secret realm came to the outer region. Kang Shinmu chose this city because it was closer and looked more prosperous. He wanted to understand the situation in the outer region. He did not expect to meet familiar faces here. They were a few cultivators who did not have the same uniform, but the pattern on their clothes was the same. The pattern looked like flowing water, but also like a flame. It was not very clear. Kang Shinmu had seen them in the city near the desolate ancient city. First of all, excluding the Everlasting Pavilion and the Heaven Yuan Palace, he did not know if they were from the Shaoyun sect and the Qing sect. Hey, isn't this Kang Shinmu? The person that Kang Shinmu could not call out Kang Shinmu's name. The few of them looked around and saw that only Kang Shinmu was there. They could not help but be puzzled. Are you really an itinerant cultivator? What else? Kang Shinmu glanced at the few of them and said calmly. Hearing that Kang Shinmu admitted it, the few of them exchanged glances and directly attacked Kang Shinmu. The speed of his attack was quite fast. As soon as he made his move, he immediately trapped Jiang Shenwu in the formation. Although the array formation did not look strong, its structure was very exquisite. It was a spatial array formation. Hand over the star map lock. After the few of them trapped Kang Shinmu, they released their supreme divine power and occupied the space around Kang Shinmu. The purpose of doing this was, of course, to prevent Kang Shinmu from using some kind of spatial technique to escape from the spatial array formation. Kang Shinmu could not deny that their starting point was right, but the fact was that they did not have any effect at all. Kang Shinmu could still use the supreme spatial power to leave the spatial array formation. The reason why he did not leave immediately was that he could see that these people were from the outer region and wanted to ask them some questions. Stop pretending to fool us. Everyone knows that you took away the star map lock. The few cultivators saw that Kang Shinmu was still silent and said. Their words and actions were full of vigilance against Kang Shinmu. How are you so sure that I am Kang Shinmu? Kang Shinmu was a little curious. There were many rumors about him in the sealed secret realm, but the version that was circulated was that he seemed to be an old and ugly cultivator. Look at this. Chapter 5750. An image of a person quickly emerged from the jade slip. In the image, Kang Shinmu was holding the 8-god star plate with a dignified look on his face. It was the scene of the battle with General Leng Changhong in the ancient desolation ancient city. Kang Shinmu was puzzled. If he remembered correctly, he was in the battle formation at that time. The person who made this image should be able to easily enter and exit the battle formation. Suddenly, Kang Shinmu thought of Gu Tianzi and Grasshopper. At that time, under the cover of the battle formation's battlefield domain, Kang Shinmu saw with his own eyes that these two people could come and go freely in the battle formation. Thinking of the scene at that time, Kang Shinmu's expression became solemn. In addition to Gu Tianzi and Grasshopper, there was another person. The person that Kang Shinmu was afraid of was Wan Zong. However, the next moment, Kang Shinmu noticed the words on the jade slip. He had seen the same words on the jade slip in Tang Xiaoyu's possession. It should be the symbol of Tianyuan Palace. Where did you get this jade slip? Kang Shinmu asked casually. I got it from the hands of the wanted criminal of Tianyuan Palace. A person who looked very honest said. As soon as he finished speaking, he was patted on the head. What are you afraid of? Everyone knows that he is a wanted criminal. Stealing from him, no one will speak up for him, right? This time, Kang Shinmu understood that this jade slip was stolen from Tang Xiaoyu by this group of people. Hurry up and hand over the star map lock. Seeing that Kang Shinmu had been dawdling for a long time and still refused to hand over the star map lock, several people urged him again. Before you ask for the star map lock, don't you have to tell me who you are? You can't let the star map lock fall into the hands of a nobody, right? Kang Shinmu's tone was a little innocent, but also a little self-deprecating. Kang Shinmu, although you are a rogue cultivator, you are not a nobody. You are famous now. Everyone knows what you did in ancient desolation ancient city. Someone said. There's also the matter of you killing Unit Fei from the everlasting pavilion. Through his understanding, Kang Shinmu found out that this group of people were not itinerant cultivators from the outer regions, nor were they from small sections. Instead, they were disciples of the Cloud Sky sect, one of the 4 great sections. Furthermore, he was a disciple of the Fire sect, one of the 5 sects of the Cloud sect. The Cloud Sky sect was divided by the 5 elements, and there were a total of 5 sections. Every one of them would cultivate the corresponding supreme god power, and then comprehend the corresponding supreme god power domain. In other words, all the disciples of the 5 sects of the Cloud Sky sect had grasped the corresponding supreme divine power. Even these few people had the domain power of a 6th level supreme divine power. This was something that Kang Shinmu had not noticed. Although they were part of the 4 great sects, the 4 great sects did not get along with each other. Moreover, the 4 great sects on the surface did not represent the overall strength of the outer realm. On the contrary, the strongest cultivators in the outer realm were the 10 rogue cultivators. These 10 people did not join any sects, nor did they attach themselves to any clan. They had always been independent. In fact, even the 10 of them did not meet each other. The outer realm sounded like a secret realm, but in fact, it was a cultivation world. Because these 10 powerful cultivators kept a low profile, even if one encountered them, one would not be able to recognize them. They were like the most ordinary people, living the most ordinary life. Of course, even though the 10 of them kept a low profile, they still had their own status symbols. This was because the existence of the 10 of them concerned the balance of the entire outer realm. Apart from these 10 cultivators, there were other powerful cultivators who were distributed among various sects or clans. Therefore, the so-called 4 great sects were just a form of address for the outside world. Moreover, among the 4 great sects, except for the heavenly Yuan Palace, the other 3 were only members of the Allied Alliance. The Allied Alliance was the overlord of the Nightmare region. How should one describe the Nightmare region? To put it simply, if the outer realm was compared to the front of the world, then the Nightmare region would be the back of the world. That wasn't accurate either. The Nightmare region might be equivalent to several outer realm realms. Wait, there's something wrong. Suddenly, one of them said. Our Cloud sect seems to have withdrawn from the Alliance some time ago, and the Qing sect is also withdrawing from the Alliance. Why? Kang Xinmu asked curiously. If you want to withdraw from the Alliance, then so be it. Why are there so many whys? You, on the other hand, you're clearly not someone from the Outer Realm, and you're heading there alone. How can you be so arrogant? Not only did these people not answer Kang Xinmu's question, but they also criticized Kang Xinmu. Hurry up and hand over the star map lock. They had just escaped from the collapsed secret realm. As the saying goes, one who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune later on. Look, they met Kang Xinmu, who had the star map lock. As long as they obtained the star atlas lock, they would become legends of the Shaoyan sect. During this period of time, Kang Xinmu had been listening to these people talk about the Outer Realm while secretly cracking the spatial array formation they had set up. Its structure was somewhat similar to the manifestation origin superposition technique, but it had a fixed array base. Presumably, all the spatial array formations they had set up used the same array base. Different spells could be used on the same formation base, thereby creating all kinds of formations. What if I don't hand it over? Kang Xinmu raised his eyebrows. Hey, you're really arrogant. When we were in the secret realm, I only heard that you cruelly killed Hai Fan from the Everlasting Pavilion, took his star devour, and shamelessly erased Hai Fan's contract mark and imprinted your own. At that time, I was still wondering how powerful a person could be to challenge the Everlasting Pavilion. Now it seems that you're quite arrogant. Let me tell you, if you don't hand it over today, the people from the Everlasting Pavilion will immediately take your life tomorrow. This group of people did not just talk, they had also strengthened their power, completely sealing off the space within a radius of several miles around Jiangshanwu. If Kang Xinmu hadn't broken through to the 9th level of Supreme Divine Power and mastered Supreme Spatial Power, he might really have been trapped. In fact, he had the ability to easily break through this layer of restrictions. In just the blink of an eye, Kang Xinmu broke through the spatial restrictions imposed by this group of people. This scene shocked the few people in front of him. It was precisely because they knew that Kang Xinmu had some tricks up his sleeve that they had trapped Kang Xinmu the moment they saw Kang Xinmu. However, they had never thought that Kang Xinmu would be able to easily break through these layers of restrictions. After all, these people were disciples of the Flame sect of the Cloud Sky sect. Although they were shocked by the strength that Kang Xinmu had displayed, they wouldn't show any weakness. They tried their best to release their strongest Supreme Divine Power, as well as the corresponding Supreme Divine Power, in an attempt to trap Kang Xinmu again. Kang Xinmu had to admit that these people were very strong. If he had met them a year ago, he would definitely have been in a tough battle. However, his current strength was not the same as before, and he easily knocked them down. We know our mistake. Senior, please be magnanimous and spare us. After being knocked down by Kang Xinmu, they immediately begged for mercy. We have some information about the Everlasting Pavilion here. We hope that it can help you, Senior. Chapter 57-51. After getting the information he wanted, Kang Xinmu let them go. They had just arrived at the outer region, so there was no reason for them to provoke the Cloud sect. After all, he had just arrived, and he had already offended the Wuxia Pavilion. Offending the Cloud sect was undoubtedly an irrational move. The disciples of the Cloud sect knew that they had underestimated Kang Shinmu's true strength. Fortunately, Kang Shinmu kept his word and let them go. They didn't stay for long and left as soon as possible. Kang Shinmu roughly organized the current situation of the Wuji Pavilion. The sect master of the Wuji Pavilion had gone out to travel and hadn't returned yet. But now, there were guests from the Alliance visiting the Wuji Pavilion. The guest of the Alliance in the Wuji Pavilion was not the Left Protector, but someone else. In short, it wasn't the time to go to the Wuji Pavilion. Kang Shinmu entered the city. He wanted to first understand the Supreme Divine Power, as well as the Supreme Divine Power related to it. Moya wouldn't leave for no reason. She must have been guided to leave. Kang Shinmu really wanted to know where Moya had gone. Was she in the outer region, the nightmare region, or somewhere else? In fact, Kang Shinmu had already sensed that this day would come when he entered the sealed secret realm. After thinking about all the cultivators he had met in the sealed secret realm, Kang Shinmu had a general direction. Moya was most likely in the nightmare region. He had heard about the nightmare region many times, but he didn't know much about it yet. The city was very lively. Many cultivators who had come out of the sealed secret realm also gathered here. Their purpose was similar to Kang Shinmu's. They mostly wanted to learn about the outer region. In other words, most of the cultivators who gathered in the city weren't from the outer region. Kang Shinmu was confused about this. Speaking of which, he had also come across the sealed secret realm by chance. At that time, he had only thought that he had been lucky enough to run into the opening of the secret realm. Now that he thought about it carefully, from the moment he and Moya encountered the sealed mystic realm, the entrance to the sealed mystic realm had always been open. The power released from the mystic realm was only a part of the mystic realm's power. At that time, Gu Tianzi, Qing Fu, and the others had also entered the secret realm. Coincidentally, most of the people who entered the mystic realm at that time were cultivators from other realms. It was said that the sealed mystic realm was a moving mystic realm. In other words, when the mystic realm's entrance first opened, these cultivators had already entered the mystic realm. Then, when the sealed secret realm first opened, it definitely wasn't in the outer realms. That was where the cultivators were inquiring about. Kang Shinmu sat in a tea house like an ordinary cultivator, listening to the discussions of the surrounding cultivators. The owner of the tea house, or perhaps a local, was telling them about the outer realms. Among them, Kang Shinmu heard the most about the otherworld. The otherworld was the word that Kang Shinmu was most familiar with. In his 8-god star plate, he had signed contracts with 5 beings from the otherworld, so he could summon them to any space he wanted at any time. Why did these cultivators keep mentioning the otherworld? There's a boundary between the otherworld and the outer realms? Someone couldn't help but exclaim. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man dressed in a linen robe. The aura of supreme divine power that leaked from him was actually the power of supreme divine fire. Moreover, this person's realm of supreme divine fire had already reached the 8th level. When Kang Shinmu first heard the words, the other world, it was also this middle-aged man who had first mentioned it. Thus, he paid more attention to him and sized him up. He was a human. Were there humans in the other world as well? As soon as he had this question, Kang Shinmu quickly overturned it. What kind of place was the other world? Apart from the famous 4 corpse progenitor clans, what other existences were there? Naturally, no one answered these questions. However, Kang Shinmu faintly felt that his understanding of the other world was very one-sided. It was very likely that the 4 corpse progenitor clans were only the tip of the iceberg. Zhuoqiucheng, don't you have the clan's teleportation talisman? See if you can use it. Someone at the side asked the middle-aged man in linen robes. I've already used it when I left the secret realm, but there was no reaction. The clan probably hasn't received the transmission. Zhuoqiucheng frowned. Before coming to Feng's secret realm, no one expected that Feng's secret realm would actually collapse. Some said that Feng's inheritance had found an inheritor, so the secret realm collapsed. Someone else chimed in. Feng's inheritance? Feng isn't dead, so how could he have the inheritance? Wuxia spoke with bewilderment. How could Feng not be dead? He was the first cultivator to study the 7 devouring devil sealing technique, yet it was reduced to fragments later on. How could he still be alive? I don't know. The sounds of discussion in the surroundings were very chaotic. In the end, Wuxia also believed that Feng was dead. Kang Xinmu wasn't sure whether Feng was still alive or not. However, he had a feeling that once the 7 devouring devil sealing technique was completed, all his questions would be answered. As for now, it was obviously not the time to be concerned about these things. He was basically sure that most of the cultivators in this tea house, including Wuxia, were from the other world. The outer realm and the other world were separated by a world boundary, and it was a chasm that couldn't be crossed by any teleportation talisman or spatial energy. When they headed to Feng's secret realm, they naturally knew that Feng's secret realm was always in a moving state. Even though Feng's secret realm was always in a moving state, it was only periodically. During the process of moving, the secret realm would circle back to the place where it first appeared, which was the other world. When the entrance to Feng's secret realm was first opened, it was the other world. Now, Kang Xinmu roughly understood why Cruel suddenly helped him that time. At the current stage, Feng's secret realm had completely collapsed, and it was something that all the cultivators in the secret realm hadn't expected. Forget about the cultivators in the outer realm, they went home directly. As for the cultivators in the other world, they could basically only stay in the outer realm. Kang Xinmu stood up and left the tea house after he had more or less understood the situation. Even though the cultivators in the tea house were basically from the other world, they didn't know each other well. Nobody knew what secret weapons the other party was hiding. Wuxia was talking to someone when he suddenly sensed the movement of the corpse talisman. The corpse talisman was a sensing Dharma tool of his clan, and it could identify some high-level Dharma tools. Of course, it could also accurately sense the Dharma tools in the other world. At this moment, Wuxia sensed the whereabouts of the bipolar mirror. Actually, he didn't sense the bipolar mirror, but the corpse talisman indicated that it was the bipolar mirror. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.